And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, December 8th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by Underdog. 13 games to break down. We did get some news earlier that has changed the slate up a little bit. Lots to break down. We don't have a lot of time for me to just waste like I normally do. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, do you like this slate more or less than the last time we talked?
I like it a little more just because we have some more good plays now.
Yeah.
But there's still so many other, there's a lot of pivots still. There's a lot of good plays. I like it.
We needed a little bit more value, and like that is what happened.
Yeah, but we got it.
I don't want a lot of bit more.
Yeah, we got it without it being a case of like, oh, this team's resting 6 guys.
Yeah. So should be fun. Should be fun. Are you ready?
Yes.
Fantastic. First game up is going to be one that I am already like just diving into the deep end for. The Toronto Raptors are 5.5-point favorites in Charlotte, 222 total. We have 15% ownership coming into Jakob Poeltl. We have 11 coming into a $4,100 Gary Trent. Single digits across the board for everybody else, although Dennis Schroeder did get to 15% on FanDuel. I thought I would get more of Toronto, but I'm not. Just scattered amounts of Trent and Siakam. Are you still here on the Raptors?
Yeah, so I'm finishing up that stuff, but I expect to still be there. Probably not as aggressively as this morning, just because Atlanta did open up quite a bit. But we still have Jakob Poeltl with a 14% chance of being optimal. We still have Siakam at 11%. I was getting like 35 and 17% respectively this morning. Again, that probably comes down a bit, but I still think I'll be here just based on how things look right now. Gary Trent still looks like a reasonable value piece at 4,100 as well.
Yeah, it's just, I thought they'd look a little bit more interesting, but again, we just keep getting that same sort of rotation for Toronto. So all of these prices are about where they've been. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add for Toronto. I will have to add something here. And that I might have to subtract something from Brandon Miller if we keep going like this. There's no ownership coming into Charlotte right now. Just basically single digits across the board, both DraftKings and FanDuel. I do have 12% Terry Rozier now. I don't have any Miles Bridges. I did knock his usage back a little bit earlier today, but Brandon Miller is in basically everything that I am doing. He is 6% owned. I am quite high on Brandon Miller, and I think it's just a price position thing, but I'm probably a little bit more aggressive than I need to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He's got the most ownership on the team. He has the highest optimal percentage on the team, but those numbers respectively are still 6% owned to 5% optimal. 5,900's an okay price tag, but it's not like super cheap. I mean, if you were like 5,100, 5,200, I'd get playing a ton of him, but here it's, I think, just kind of a mediocre play. It's not like it's a great matchup or anything. So I think he looks like probably the first guy you would get to on Charlotte, assuming Mark Williams is in, but I still don't love it.
So I will say this, and I think it's part of the reason that I am driving home with a bit more Brandon Miller. If I look at our rates, we have him at 0.77 fantasy points per minute. If I happen to look at another source, I see 0.78 fantasy points per minute. He's at 0.83 for the last 30 days. I think we're in I think it's safe to say that he'd be in and around 0.8. I think I'm just a little bit heavier than that. I'm at like 0.87. But even if I walk that back to like that 0.83, 0.82 range, I think it's just a very small amount that I'm over, while I think it's a very small amount on the opposite side. And that is just driving me to this one specific option. The flexibility is helping too. Like if he had one less position, I think it probably doesn't happen. But I'm team Brandon Miller today, apparently.
Yeah. There's even a lot of those on this slate, though, like shooting guard, small forward, or point guard, small forward type guys.
Yeah. It's, how many minutes do you have him for?
I'm not ready for that.
That's fair.
36.
Okay. Like I have 35.
Yeah.
And my first thought was like, okay, I'll just take a minute. I was like, well, if I take a minute, then like, I don't think 34 is correct. And then I'm still getting this dude. So I have a sneaky suspicion I'm going to have a bunch of Brandon Miller.
Yeah. So I just finished my stuff. I have 3% Brandon Miller. It's my highest owned guy on the Hornets.
Yeah. We're just on a completely I'm just on a completely different level for him. Something about him makes him funnel to the top of a group of 5,000 lineups for me.
Yeah. And for the Toronto side, got exactly what I was expecting. Jakob Poeltl, I have 20% now instead of 35. I still have 15% Siakam, 11% Trent, 7% OG, 3% Schroeder. So all 5 of the starters, and basically distributed in the same way that the field is.
Brandon Miller, 0.95 DraftKings points per minute in 277 minutes with no LaMelo Ball this year. I'm just early, man. When Brandon Miller's 6,600 next week, because he just starts smashing, remember where you heard it.
Yeah, and you'll have 2%.
If it wasn't for all that stupid news, I would have had the OG piece. That one is a bit of a heartbreaker.
The volume was on my end, Mike, not yours.
By the way, Mark Williams, still questionable. So it's possible we end up getting Nick Richards at center. It's not going to have the same impact on the slate that it did last time.
Right. He's going to be a good play. If Nick Richards starts, he's a solid play. He's not the redo your lineups and get him everywhere play.
Anything else for the Hornets?
No, kind of wish I was getting a little bit more, but at the same time, I understand why I'm not. Just pretty unappealing spot, 108 implied total. Prices are up. Like without LaMelo, clearly you get an increased ceiling on any of these guys, but the prices have also come up a bit.
If you want more Charlotte, in particular Brandon Miller, I can send you my projections.
I want that much.
The Detroit Pistons are 11-point underdogs in Orlando, 228 total for the Pistons. Joe Harris is available. We don't have Jalen Duren. On the Orlando side, we did get our news. Wendell Carter Jr. out, Markelle Fultz out, Jonathan Isaac out, and Jalen Suggs out. Single-digit ownership to the whole Detroit side, and I have 3% of Cade. I will happily take nothing from the Pistons because I have no level of trust across the board for this rotation.
Yeah, I have 13% Bogdanovich, which I think is interesting. His price tag came up, but it is a situation where he was very clearly underpriced last game. So it's not as simple as just saying, oh, he was 5,100. He had a big game. Now he went up $1,400. You can't play him. Now he's just priced more or less where he should be, probably a little overpriced, but only getting 5% ownership. So I am still getting a bit over the field there. I'm not getting to anything else right now. 2% Stewart, 1% Hayes. I am interested to see what the starting lineup looks like.
Yeah.
If Asar Thompson starts, I think he's a pretty good play at 5,800. We seemingly have him projected to start. We have him at 27.5 DraftKings points, 7% chance of being optimal. My guess is Ivy, but again, that's a guess. So how that breaks will be interesting. I'm not getting to Ivy. I think it would be a little bit easier to get to Thompson just given the position.
I don't really have a lean, honestly, which I know isn't helpful. I should, but I don't. Yeah, like I don't know if it's going to matter if I start projecting any of these guys to like those kinds of minutes, whether it is a start. Like, am I more likely to get to whoever's starting? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen either way.
Yeah, well, and it's a 7:00 game, so they'll tell you.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't care. Like, I would rather just not have the Pistons tonight.
Yeah, like. Thompson's the one that would be interesting to me if he starts because he would be likely to take on an extra, a bigger rebounding role with no Durant.
Yeah.
That is something he's good at. Like his problem from a fantasy standpoint is he's a good defender. He's a terrible offensive player, but he does give you rebounds and no Jalen Duren out there. If it's Thompson, that would be interesting to me. If it's Ivy, he's 5,600, but we still have no idea how many minutes he's playing. We have no idea what this rotation is going to look like. There's 13 games. I don't really care.
I hate this stupid team. Hated a ton. The Orlando side is now different. So lots of ownership on the FanDuel side. 25 to Cole Anthony, 30 to Franz, 25 to Gary Harris, 15 to Goga, 30 to Paolo Banchero. It's different on DK, but I'm getting it in different ways. 35% ownership coming into Cole Anthony, 17 to Franz, 10 to Goga, and 14 to Paolo Banchero. I think the easiest place to start is, who do you think is starting today? I assume it's Gary. My assumption is it's just Gary Harris.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it's Gary Harris, but I also think Cole Anthony plays more.
That just gets so tricky because it's that same conversation we have with like, if you're not starting, how many minutes can you really project the dude off the bench? Like, how comfortable are you going? Because he's 35% owned. I think you have to be projecting Cole Anthony to like 32 minutes or more to get to a 35% ownership. And that's scary.
I'm getting 34% at 31 minutes.
Okay. I gave him 30 minutes, probably a minute light. I did get 22%, so I don't really feel bad about it, but it does scare me. Like his price tag's not low, and they are 11-point favorites. Like there's a really decent chance that he doesn't have to be in that fourth quarter rotation.
Yeah. For what it's worth, there's been one game this year where Jalen Suggs was out. It was on November 17th against the Bulls. Gary Harris started. Gary Harris played 28.7 minutes. Cole Anthony off the bench played 36.8. For both halves, he subbed in halfway through the first quarter or third quarter, depending on the respective half, and never left the floor again.
What was the date?
November 17th at Chicago.
Okay. I just want to look at it alongside of you here.
Jonathan Isaac was in. Joe Ingles was in. Anthony Black started.
Yeah, that's the same. That's the same rotation now.
Yeah, it's what we're expecting tonight.
Yeah. That's obviously like projecting that is impossible.
No, you're right. So you're not going to go to 37 because that's what he played last time. But those rotations do make that 31-minute give or take projection very, very reasonable because like you said, things can go wrong when you come off the bench. You can very easily lose that fourth quarter rotation for one reason or another. But if the plan is to play that, call it 36 minutes and this game is a blowout and he loses those 6 minutes, you're still at that 30-minute mark. I'd be really uncomfortable with 31 minutes if I had looked at this and it had been like, he subs in, he plays 10 minutes, he goes back to the bench, then he closes the half. Like if it had been the rotation like that, I'd be really concerned. But the rotation was just you come off the bench and then you go play 18 minutes to close the half.
And it does seem the reason that like I'd be shocked if he didn't close is just because he's certainly going to be ahead of Anthony Black in a closing lineup. And like
you assume the closing
and now you don't have Suggs complicating matters.
Right. You don't have Suggs out there as like the literal best defender in the league this year. To be in the closing lineup. I assume the closing lineup is the starters, and then instead of Anthony Black, Cole Anthony.
Yeah. The only place that I think that you would bring it down, and I'm going to bump him up to 32, I think I have to. The only place that I think that you lose those extra minutes from him is you can just as easily close the second quarter with Anthony Black and not have to play Cole Anthony for 20 straight minutes in that half.
Right. But that goes back to what I was just saying, where there's a lot of room for him to just randomly lose. He can lose 3 minutes per half, and you're still at 30 or 31.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think I like 32 now that we've talked that through. Just seeing that rotation, it's like, okay, when you start to think about who's going to be on the floor for that closing lineup, there aren't a lot of other choices.
Right.
Hell, Isaac closed that game. That's not happening today.
Now it is.
But that doesn't really matter here either way.
Emerges from the locker room to close now.
Yeah. So I'm going to have more than that 22% of Cole Anthony now that I just gave him this pretty sizable bump, and clearly the matchup against Detroit looks great.
Yeah, I'm a little more comfortable now that we talked that through too. Like I hate the idea of like the upper 6K, low 7K guy off the bench as chalk. It's just like, this can go wrong so many ways, but at the same time, I don't know how else you would project him.
The fact that there is no Suggs, like that's the reason it's happening. And they seem to not really be interested in playing Anthony Black for any sort of like high leverage minutes makes me feel a lot better about it. So I'm going to, are you going to go to 32 or keep 31?
Probably 31.
Okay.
And also like Cole Anthony played 32 minutes off the bench last game with Suggs in. Well, Suggs didn't play the second half, but like in the first half, he closed. Actually, I guess that's when Suggs got hurt. So never mind, I take it back.
So, I mean, it doesn't make it any less true, but
right. Well, the point I was gonna make was even in a game where they were healthy, he got very favorable first half rotation. But he did just like no idea what they would have done, but it didn't look like he was going to come in.
You getting to more Franz or Banchero?
A little bit more Franz. I have 21% Franz, 13% Banchero.
I have 27% Banchero and 11% Franz. And
I think you can go either way on those guys. Yeah,
I wouldn't, no matter what order those numbers were in, I wouldn't have cared at all. Happy to have them both.
40.7 minutes last game for Franz, by the way.
Yeah, I bumped him up to 34 for today. And could easily think about 35. Anything else here for Orlando? Like we're getting a little bit of love to Batadze and Mo Wagner. I'm not all that excited about it, but great spot.
I have 11% Mo Wagner. I have 9% Goga. I don't have like any Gary Harris, but he is up to 4,900.
Yeah. Oh man, Cole Anthony season. He is going to bust like you wouldn't believe today. It just feels, I feel it now.
So I'm curious now that we have him going way over owned. We have him, so we only have him at 29 minutes.
Okay.
We have him with 24% ownership, 8% chance of being optimal. Obviously, if you're at 31, 32 minutes, that optimal percentage is going to be a bit higher.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't think 29 is crazy. Like we have that that final rotation like doesn't have to exist.
Right. My issue with it as a projection is that this game has to go completely crazy and probably involve an injury or foul trouble for Cole Anthony to be playing like 26 minutes or 27 minutes. We know exactly what it looks like for him to play 37. So it just feels like it's a little bit low, which is why we're at 31 and 32.
His points prop is 17.5 with some juice to the over. Just over 19. So I feel pretty good about it. Cole Anthony season, like I said when we started this.
I can't wait to like run everything before lock. I don't get him. You get 80%. He busts horribly. And I just rub it in your face how much of an idiot you are for playing him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you might as well just send that tweet now. All right. Anything else for Orlando?
No.
The Hawks are 9-point underdogs in Philly, 234 total. So this was a 240 total earlier today, but apparently Trae Young has something to do with the Atlanta offense. That number came down quite a bit because Trae Young is not playing now. Philly is at full strength. This is the team that we're getting to in a big, big way. 10% ownership to DeAndre Hunter, 20 to 25 on Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, 30 to Bogdan Bogdanovic and Sadiq Bey, 45 to DeJounte Murray. I have way more on some of these dudes. So who is your favorite Atlanta Hawk?
So my favorite Atlanta Hawk is much different than the Atlanta Hawks I'm playing. My favorite is Murray. I mean, he's 8K. He's looks fantastic without Trae Young. It's, the fine enough, good enough spot. Like 8K, point guard, shooting guard. DeJounte Murray looks really good. 41% ownership, 28% optimal. Now, I will say right now, if the slate started, I would have 5%, which feels terrifying. And I hope that it changes. But I'm not getting there right now. And the only reason I could think of is just that it is the guard positions. It is 8K still. So there are plenty of alternatives on a 13-game slate. If he's going to be 40% owned, you can find other good plays. But that being said, I still would expect I'm getting a bit, at least more than I have right now by lock. It's not somebody that I'm like, I have any real reason for thinking isn't a good play. It is worth noting we have him 28% to be optimal at 41% owned. So, going over owned, but still extremely likely to be optimal. I am getting to other pieces of this team aggressively, though. Getting 53% Bogdan Bogdanovic, shooting guard, small forward, 6,400, 30% owned. I have 53. I have 52% Okongwu now at 4,900. 21% owned. I have 38% Capella. We talked about it this morning. They've consistently been playing a handful of minutes alongside each other now. They're both still cheap enough where they're pretty strong options. So I'm getting both of those guys. I'm getting the 20% DeAndre Hunter, who's only 10% owned. So I'm 2x the field there. 13% on Sadiq Bey. So I'm half the field on him. And then again, I'm not getting to DeJounte, and I don't really know why.
Man, we have just like wildly different Atlanta experiences right now. So I am getting to DeJounte. I have 59%. I assume if you were picking between those two, you'd take mine over yours.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm half the field on Capella, half the field on Okongwu. I really don't mind that as much. I think their spot now looks worse without Trae. It's not like they're creators. They just have they lost their better creator.
Yeah, I don't love that. I'm actually about to just like rerun stuff as we talk because I want to see if things just change.
Sure.
And like just double check stuff because like I don't have any issue with the Okongwu price tag. I don't have any issue with the Capella price tag. I think they're good plays. I don't like that I'm suddenly jamming them just because Trae Young is out and I'm not playing the guy that one of the guys that actually very, very, very clearly benefits from Trae Young being out.
Yeah. I'm neutral on Bogdanovic. I have 34%. So I know you said you had a little bit more, but like we're in the same area there and like liking him. I'm 2xing DeAndre Hunter, 11% owned. I got 23. Pretty happy about that, just considering he's the low man for Atlanta, but isn't going anywhere for today. Like those minutes are going to be there. The guy that I have the most of, though, is Sadiq Bey, my boy, 5,700 power forward only. I have 65% Sadiq Bey. And I don't have a single issue with that at all. Like he's just going to be out there eating tons and tons of minutes.
Agreed.
Sadiq Bey, by the way, last 2 games, 36 and 37. Like, I only gave him 34 for today, and we just freed up 36 more. Love it. Go Hawks in as 9-point dogs in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
At least it's all real people, though. Like, I don't mind stacking up all of Atlanta in a 9-point underdog game because Bogdanovich, Capella, Hunter, Murray, Okongwu, and Sadiq Bey are real rosterable NBA players.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, again, and just going back to the Murray thing, we've only had the one game this year that he played without Trae Young, 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. Overall for the season, without Trae Young on the floor, only 1.16 DraftKings points per minute. I'm taking you off Jalen Johnson as well.
Probably jumps there, but
1.17
small sample.
I thought it would. 1.17.
Do you have his like true shooting or anything there?
So he has a 27.8% usage rate, 62.7% true shooting.
Ooh, okay. I like the moment I see those numbers and it's just like, man, I thought that would be different.
Yeah.
I usually look at true shooting and it's like, oh, it's 47%.
Yeah, that's usually what it is. 32% assist percentage. So it's not like he's shockingly low there or anything. From a points per minute standpoint, so far this year, overall without Young, I really don't like. It's just another thing where it's like, I don't mind it isn't the right thing because I would certainly like to have more. But
yeah,
the fact he is 8K, the fact there are always an abundance of guards and players in the 8K range, and the fact that if he just replicates what he's done without Trae Young and Jalen Johnson so far this year, he is going to be a perfectly fine but not great play. Like, yeah. I get it. It's not really the stand that I would like to take, but if he's going to be 40% owned, I get it.
Oh, man. Hell of a day. Go Hawks. The moral of the story is, in some way, you should be getting to a bunch of Hawks.
Yes.
Whichever ones you want to pick, go for it. But they look great. You didn't create any value for AJ Griffin, Trent Forrest, Wes Matthews. I didn't get any of these guys. I'm assuming you didn't either. Garrison Matthews as well.
Yeah, I just got the real players.
All right. On the Philly side, there is basically no ownership coming in to the Sixers. 5% to Joel Embiid, 1% to Batum, Harris, and Maxey. I got 5% of Batum right now and nobody else. So feels like I'm going to be fading a Joel Embiid 80 burger like I did last time.
We're on the same page on this one. I have 5% Batum. I have 1% Harris. That's it. I would like to be getting to more. I mean, it's a great matchup. Embiid, obviously, if you can get there, is great, but it's really tough. One, it's tough to just find the salary for Embiid on this slate because even with, as we just said, even with Atlanta, with Trae Young being out, it just opened up more good mid-range plays. It didn't open up a bunch of cheap guys. You don't have a lot of good cheap plays on this slate. You have a very deep center position. We just talked about Capella, Okongwu, but there's a lot of mid-range centers on this slate. And then even amongst the pay-up guys, you have Devin Booker for $1,500 less than Embiid playing without Durant and Beal. So where you do find the money to pay up, it's just going to be easier to go to Devin Booker a lot.
That it is. Malevolent Elephant with the super chat. Love you guys. I've always been a single entry guy, but new to MME on DK. Is there ever any merit to using the lock button if I really like someone? I think y'all are going to say no, but just want to ask. I think the easiest way to describe it is this. If you end up after your process having 100% of a player, I don't have an issue with that. I wouldn't use that as the feature, though.
Right. The way I think about it is, and this came up the other day, and I agree with you. If you just want 100% DeJounte Murray, you can make 150 plus EV DeJounte Murray lineups.
Yeah.
But what's the actual logical reasoning that you would want that? Like, if you're just manually going into this saying, I'm going to lock DeJounte Murray, then your assumption is that whatever your process is wouldn't be giving you 100% DeJounte Murray, but you want it anyway. So then the question is, well, why do you want it anyway? If you, like, in theory, at least, you've put together this whole good process to make your DFS lineups, and you're like, well, it's only going to give me 50%. So let's make sure it gives me 100. Why are you circumventing the thing that you've worked so hard on?
Yeah. So like the answer is, do what you want, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, you can make quality lineups doing that.
Yeah.
It's just why.
Yeah. Agreed. Anything else for Philly?
No.
Well, this part's pretty easy. Schedule for the rest of the day. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. They'll take you up to 7 o'clock, and then this one just ends. It's Friday. We don't have anything more going on tonight. You'll get Adam in the morning tomorrow, but that's the best that I can do for you. But that is the schedule. The other important thing that you guys can do right now is to load up our avatar wherever you're playing. DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, Owner's Box. Go to Stochastic.com, grab our avatar. Go to Stochastic.com/avatar, grab our avatar. Lock and load that bad boy, because if you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month, whatever you're looking for at Stochastic. It's a $200 value. Get projections and ownership sims tools for the NBA or NFL if that's the direction you want to go. You can't really beat this deal because it doesn't cost you a thing. The only thing you have to do if you finish that way is to tweet that result at Stochastic HOF so that we can add you to the Hall of Fame. We would like to promote your victory, and we want to show people that it's a Stochastic logo at the top. That's what we get out of it. But you get a month of Stochastic for free. Just do it, guys. Stochastic.com/avatar. It's the easiest thing you'll do today.
One other thing I want to follow up on that on that question about locking somebody. I think you could also probably sort of make a case where, let's say you run your normal process and you get like 89% DeJounte Murray. Then maybe you just want to say, okay, I'm just going to find the 11 lineups or whatever and replace them with DeJounte Murray lineups at that point. But, I think that's even different, where it's like, okay, well, at this point, why do I have 10 lineups that don't have DeJounte Murray or whatever? But if it's something where like you're getting 60%, I don't personally like overriding it.
Mark Williams available to play.
Good.
Yeah. When we get to this point, more often than not, it's just like, I hope everybody's in.
Well, when we get to this point where we're 30 minutes into the show, I did the work to prepare for the show. I don't want to just not have it anymore.
Your Washington Wizards are 9.5-point dogs in Brooklyn, 239 total. Single-digit ownership on both DraftKings and FanDuel. 9% to Gafford, 9% to Gallo. Those are the high marks. I don't have anybody in double digits either, but I have a scattered amount of Washington.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. I have everything rerunning now just because I'm curious to see how much my DeJounte Murray exposure changes just sort of through randomness. But yeah, I don't expect to be getting a lot here. I have some interest in Gafford at 5,400. Gives you block upside. He's cheap. He's one of a million centers in this range that look perfectly fine. There's nothing else that really stands out. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if I'm getting some Kuzma just because he's in that same price range as Murray and he's somebody that, can beat him. It is interesting to think about it in the sense of, we just talked about what DeJounte Murray's done in 200 or so minutes without Trae Young. Kyle Kuzma on average is better than that this year.
Yeah. And he is 1.25 over the last 30 days. And
he's won
not all that different before that.
So from that standpoint, I think he's a solid pivot, but there's going to be a lot of guys like that. I don't necessarily expect to be getting a lot. I just reran everything. And so my Sadiq Bey changed drastically. I now have 64% of him. I still have a ton of Bogdanovic. I have a ton of Okongwu. Hunter is down to 12%. Capella is down to only 4%. DeJounte Murray is down to 2%. So I just reran things and lost even more DeJounte Murray.
Magic will start Black, Harris, Wagner, Banchero, Batadze. So we got what we thought we would.
Yeah. And now just to get back to the Wizards, I thought I had just nailed it for a second because Kuzma's my highest owned guy, but it's 1%. I just do not have this team.
You did not nail it then.
No.
You did not nail it. All right. Then we go to the Brooklyn side. I do have some here. Single-digit ownership across the board, except for Cam Johnson is small forward, power forward, 6K on FanDuel. He's 20% owned there. I have 17 of them on DraftKings, and then I have 22% of Nick Claxton. He is 7% owned. I like him as a center option today.
Yeah, so do I. I'm getting to 20 now. That's a nice change from this morning when I wasn't getting there, even though I really wanted to. I had said this morning that he was my favorite play from this team, even though I had like 3%. So happy to get to 20. Good spot against Washington. 6,600 is a very reasonable price tag. Said it before, but and this is why it's so difficult to get to Embiid and even more difficult to get to Jokic. You can debate over who the mid-range centers that are going to have good games are, but there are so many fantasy point plus per minute guys between like $5,000 and $7,000 that almost by default, at least 2 or 3 are going to put up big games. And, Claxton's one of the ones I'm getting to at 20%. No problem being over the field there. I'm also pretty happy. I'm getting to 13% Mikal Bridges at 2% owned. That could certainly be part of the DeJounte Murray pivot equation. He's $700 more. He's, again, if you're trusting what Murray has done without Young this year, he's a comparable point per minute guy. And he's got a great matchup. I'm getting to 10% Cameron Johnson. So those are pretty much the three I'm getting to here.
All right. Yeah, like we're at a point now because of the way center looks that you're going to need 70 or more out of Jokic and Embiid to like feel good about having it.
Yeah, you would think.
This one should be quick. The Knicks are 8-point dogs in Boston, 220 total. This is a pace down spot for both teams. Both defenses are solid. 4% Julius Randle is the highest owned guy. I got one share of him, and that is it.
I got 4.
Yeah.
So I have 3% Julius Randle and no other player on the Knicks.
And I don't have more to say here. This is as bad of a spot as you're going to get for the Knicks. Fun basketball, like maybe not fun in terms of like an entertainment value, but like two quality teams. I'd like to watch this one and see like good players play basketball, but this is not a good DFS game.
Yeah, like this is a game that if this were the postseason, I'd be looking at it like, man, that's probably going to be a good game that I'm not going to tune into for a single second. Yeah, I mean, it's just really tough to get here from a fantasy standpoint because one, they're both good, very good defensively. Neither one plays fast, and neither team is hurt. The Celtics are even healthier. They're getting Porzingis back, and the Knicks are just healthy. Everybody's priced where they should be, and the matchup sucks.
Similarly, on the Boston side, 1% ownership to Derek White, to Tatum, and to Holiday, and that is it. So I have none of this. Same exact story as the Knicks side. Kristaps Porzingis is back, by the way.
Yep, I have 1% Jaylen Brown. 1 out of 100, so less than 1. 1 out of 150 lineups with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
rounding up, I have 1%.
Is someone going to be good from this game? Absolutely.
Yep.
Does that matter today for me? Sure don't.
No, because it goes. We talk about it a lot on these bigger slates. Sure, Jaylen Brown can do well, Jason Tatum can do well, but Kyle Kuzma can do well, Julius Randle can do well. You can see the problem pretty quickly if you envision like building lineups and then making sure you fit in every low-owned player that could do well.
Lowest total on the slate here, 213.5 for Minnesota, 5.5-point favorites in Memphis. Highest owned guy on DraftKings is 3% to Conley. It's 6 to Conley on FanDuel. I have 0 shares of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They kind of looked like the last game.
Yep, 1% Conley and 1% Reed for me. There's obviously talent on this team, but 109 implied total. The game doesn't look particularly appealing from a fantasy standpoint. Prices are up. It's just so difficult to pay like $9K for Towns when Edwards is in. Edwards doesn't have small forward eligibility for whatever reason. He's tough to get to at 9,300. Gobert is priced up. I talked about him some this morning where he's somebody that a lot of the times I'm like 2x the field on just because, when he's low owned, because you still get plenty of upside from him. But the problem today is that it's not that he's overly expensive at 7,400, but he's just, he's 800 more than Claxton. He's 2,000 more than Gafford, who I'm also not getting to, but is a guy you can play. He's more than Allen. He's just more than so many centers, and that's not even including like Duop Reith as a value play.
Jesus. Unbelievable. Memphis on the other side, 1% ownership is the highest mark to anybody on the DK side, 6% to Desmond Bane on the FanDuel side. I have 2 shares of Bane and 1 of Jackson. I also don't have Memphis.
No, I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't expect to either. I have 1% Jackson, 1% Bane. Same thing. I mean, 104 implied total for the Grizzlies. Brutal matchup against Minnesota, one of the best defensive teams in the league. Correct pricing across the board. As good as Desmond Bane is, it's very difficult to pay $9,300 for him. It's tough to pay $8K for Jaren Jackson on this slate. Kind of another throwaway game for me.
Yeah, that was that stretch of games was really easy to break down.
Yep.
So now we could talk a little bit about the sponsor of this show. That would be Underdog. You can get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100 as long as you click the link in the description of this video, or if it pops up in chat. If you need to do anything in the fantasy or betting space, Underdog is the place you want to go. Pick'em contests if you're not in a legal sports betting state. Daily fantasy contests with large field GPPs. Best ball, certainly on the football side. I didn't do any NBA best ball again, which I'll end up being mad at myself for.
I didn't this year, which I was mad about because I only did 20 last year and I put 2 in the finals. I got 3rd place and then I just didn't get around to it this year.
Yeah, same. So I hate myself for that. And then playoff drafts, NBA, NHL, PGA majors. It is a one-stop shop for best ball fantasy and pick'em. And if you want to sign up, we have the links here for you. I highly recommend it. Get the deposit bonus. Maybe use OddsShopper. That link is also in the description. That'll help you out on the pick'em side for sure. We take a market-based approach to beating those books. But ultimately, you should just want to be at Underdog. They're one of the best places that you can do fantasy things in this industry. All right, let's keep it moving. Cleveland Cavs, 1-point favorites in Miami, 222 total. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Single-digit ownership across the board for Cleveland. No priorities here. The most I have is 3% Darius Garland.
Yeah, the most I have is 5% Garland, 5% Mitchell. I was kind of hoping to get some Jared Allen at 6,500, but I don't have it right now. Getting 2%. Yeah.
We do have news here that we're waiting on. Evan Mobley is questionable. If he happens to be out, that will likely change up the game a little bit here and free up a little bit of playing time. Dennis Smith Jr. now questionable. Did he? I don't remember seeing that, but I will trust you.
I wouldn't totally, but I think I saw it.
Not present at shoot-around. So, yeah, something to think about there. Let's say we don't get Evan Mobley. Jared Allen immediately looks like a much better center option than what we're getting.
Yeah, I think that's why I was surprised just now when I looked and saw I only had 2% Allen, but it's because I had mentally already taken Mobley out. I just hadn't actually taken him out since he's still questionable. But yeah, Allen's going to look pretty good if Mobley's out. It just gives him a path to playing more minutes. Other than that, I don't think it changes a ton in terms of guys that you're confidently playing. I do think it opens the door for, in your largest field tournaments, rolling the dice on some Cleveland bench guys.
Yeah.
Tristan Thompson could just play all of the backup center minutes. He's 3K flat. Now, that could mean 12 if Jared Allen plays 36, but if Jared Allen plays 30 and you get 18 minutes from Tristan Thompson, that is potentially valuable. Okoro or Niang could play a lot. Niang's 4K, Okoro's 4,300. Obviously, neither guy is a great point per minute guy, but the potential path is there for Okoro to just play 36 minutes and have a random Okoro game where he knocks down corner threes and gets steals. But there's nobody that would jump out where it's just like, oh, this guy looks great, because they're just not very good point per minute guys that are going to be soaking up these minutes for the most part.
Yeah. And, Mobley going away, it's not like you're freeing up usage.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are going to be the guys that are taking all that shit anyway.
Right. Exactly. The talking points in Cleveland right now are, Evan Mobley is phenomenal defensively, but is this guy actually going to be an offensive player or not?
On the opposite side of this one, we have no Bam Adebayo. We have no Tyler Hero. We have no Haywood Highsmith. 12% ownership coming into Caleb Martin. Just 6 to Orlando Robinson, which is 10 times less than I have.
It's 3
I'm
times
not mad about it either, by the way.
No, I wouldn't be. It's 3 times less than I have. So I do have 18% Robinson. That was one of the things I said this morning, that I was pretty sure that the none I had this morning was going to change. I have 18% of him. Another thing I said was going to change was this morning Caleb Martin was my highest owned guy. I now have 19%. Honestly, that is still more than I really would like at 5,900, yes. But shooting guard, small forward, 5,900. There's obviously a path to him being good. You have to go back one game for that. My big concern is that as well as he played last game, he still only played 31 minutes. Now, most of him playing well, at least from a scoring standpoint, was in the first half. I'm sure if he played in the fourth quarter like he was in the first, he would have closed. But the fact that he only played 31 minutes in a game where he scored 24 points doesn't really make me overly confident that he's giving you massive minutes here. Pretty unappealing spot. But, again, shooting guard, small forward, 5,900. You're probably playing Brandon Miller. I'm playing Caleb Martin.
Yeah, I'll take the Brandon Miller side. But Orlando Robinson, 5,400, center eligible, has split 48 minutes with Kevin Love over the past 2 games. There's nothing in those 2 experiences that make me think I should project that any different.
I didn't hear what you said.
I'm giving Orlando Robinson 30 minutes.
He
split 48 with Kevin Love the past 2 games. I don't know why I would project that to be anything other than that.
Right. There's still that chance that the rotation changes and you get, some Thomas Bryant minutes or something. But we kind of speculated at that last game. Spoelstra said that was the intention. Still didn't do it. So, a general reminder that coaches lie frequently and also forget that they're in charge of who gets to play. Don't know which one it was in Spoelstra's case, but he did it again. So
Yeah.
at this point, I think you just assume you're getting 48 minutes combined from Orlando Robinson and Kevin Love.
Here's my question for you. And I like, seriously, why do you think he's so low owned?
I don't know.
I can't justify, like, this is not a Brandon Miller situation. Like, he's a fantasy point per minute dude projected for no less than 28 minutes. That's a really good thing at his salary. He's 5,400.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Okay, so like he at 5,400, I have a hard time. Like, is he that much worse than Onyeka Okongwu?
No. No, and like even like I think our projection on him is too low. We have him at 29 minutes, but we have him less than a fantasy point per minute, which isn't him. But even at 26 and a half DraftKings points, I would still think he's more popular than that.
Yeah. Like, I would certainly rather have Orlando Robinson than Clint Capella today, given the salaries. He's $600 cheaper, and he is 1/4 the ownership.
Yeah, and like I said in this most recent run, I do actually have less Capella by 4%. I'm basically playing Capella the way that the field is playing Robinson, and I'm playing Robinson the way the field's playing Capella, basically.
He's half the ownership of Jakob Poeltl at 5,900. So basically, Poeltl $500 more expensive. Like, I don't see it. He's either going to be significantly more owned than 6%, or for the first time this year, like, I feel like we got one over the field.
Right. I feel like he's probably just going to be a little bit more popular. I honestly, like, I still have 45% of Okongwu. I would really prefer some of that were becoming Orlando Robinson too.
Yeah. He looks fantastic to me. I really don't get it at that ownership number. So that should be fun. Go Orlando Robinson here.
You get fantasy points for things other than scoring, Josh.
I was like, what? Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I know. It's a weird game. Really weird game. Olrat hit us with the super chat. What center for single entry and double ups on DraftKings?
Probably Capella.
Capella, Reith, or Okongwu, I think, are the three potential answers for you in terms of double up. If we're talking in a single entry, then, anybody.
Yeah.
But based on the ownership, Reith, Capella, and Okongwu are the only centers that are over 20% owned. Unless you're going to Jokic or Embiid after that, I think you got to stick to one of those three guys. I would prefer the ones that start before I went to Okongwu in that situation.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm looking to see what my optimal would be right now just to kind of confirm that, but I'd be surprised if it's anything other than that.
All righty. Anything else for Miami?
No, the only two guys I was getting were Orlando Robinson and Caleb Martin.
Yeah, same. Golden State Warriors, 3-point dogs in Oklahoma City, 236 total. I was a little surprised based on the game total to see that there is just no ownership coming into Golden State, but the prices make it so that there should be no ownership coming into Golden State. I, in fact, have literally no ownership coming into Golden State.
I accidentally lost my previous thing. I don't expect to be getting much Golden State. I'm rerunning things for the third time now. By the way, Claxton was showing up for me too, as far as optimal.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think there's much for Golden State. Chris Paul is questionable, which could open up some minutes potentially.
And his minutes have been down lately anyway. So
right. I'll say I don't really know what exactly it opens up. Like Pajemski's already 4,700. Moody's already 4,900. I don't really like there's going to be more minutes. I just don't really know what you can do about it.
Yeah, I don't have a single share, so I don't really have a lot that I want to like add to the equation here. It's just I'm not going to have Golden State. I am going to have the Oklahoma City side though, but I have a lot less than I had earlier, and that's kind of bumming me out. 16% ownership coming into Kenrich Williams at 3,200 is the high mark on DraftKings, which I'm guessing no one knew, other than if you watched the show earlier. 14% ownership coming into Jalen Williams. That is the guy I'm getting to. I have 2% of Case and Wallace, 3% of Chet. I have a couple shares of Giddey. Williams, I'm way under on Williams. And then only 1% of Shea now, which I'm kind of sad that I lost. But I think Jalen Williams is the guy that I want here.
Yeah, that's who I was getting the most of this morning. I think that's probably who I'll end up getting the most of. Small forward, power forward, 6,200. Playing time's been there. Obviously his rates take a substantial hit. His production takes a substantial hit when Gilgeous-Alexander is active. But at that price tag, it's just going to be pretty easy to fit him into lineups. He's getting 14% ownership. Kenrich Williams is projected for 15, like you said. I get, like, he's one of the cheapest guys you can get to. He's 3,200. I just still really don't want to be getting there, especially with him getting ownership. He only played 14 minutes last game. It's not like he's a great point per minute guy or anything. The Oklahoma City rotation outside of a couple guys is extremely volatile, which is good for somebody like Kenrich Williams in that if he's playing well, he can just play more minutes. But when that player is also 15% owned, it's not necessarily good because you just have the field playing him like he's going to play 18 minutes when he could just play 14 and not be useful.
Yeah, I don't need that value right now. Doesn't seem like it's necessary, but yeah, I've got 30% to Jalen Williams, which is totally fine for me. Really happy to see him have the MPE. That is helping me out today.
I'm back to 5% to Jonathan Murray.
There you go. There you go.
As far as the Golden State game, I have 2% Steph. Only 5% Jalen Williams, 4% Chet, 1% SGA. Kind of wish I was getting more there. No Kenrich Williams from me right now.
Smart. I just wish I had my SGA back.
I like this one better. I'm up to 25% Orlando Robinson, down to 12% on Caleb Martin.
There we go. We're getting there. The Chicago Bulls are 2.5-point favorites in San Antonio, 224 total.
10% Brandon Miller.
There, we're getting there, man. We're getting there. Did you hack my computer and just take my projections? Because you probably should. Probable tag on Alex Caruso, probable tag on Torrey Craig. We have no Zach LaVine for the extended future. 12% ownership to Caruso, single digits across the board to everybody else. Although I will add DeMar DeRozan is 20% owned on FanDuel, $8,100 small forward only. I basically don't have Chicago, just scattered amounts of everyone. I have 6% Kobe White, which is like the one guy I didn't want.
Yeah, I said ew as I pulled this up because I have 15% Kobe White. And my next highest owned guy from the Bulls right now on DraftKings is 3% Alex Caruso, 3% DeRozan, 2% Vooch. Kobe White's not exactly somebody that I want at this price tag, but it is a good matchup against the Spurs. He's played 3 games now without LaVine and with DeRozan. He does have a 22.5% usage rate and a 22.5% assist percentage, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. He's shooting 56% from 3, which is not going to continue. So like that point per minute is going to drop off, but he is playing big minutes. It is a good matchup. I understand it at low ownership. It's just not one that I particularly like.
Yeah. I have no Caruso. I'm very happy about that. Yeah, so I assume he's going to play 30.
Yeah, perfectly fine with having very little Caruso at this projected ownership.
Race fan said best 5K play or under for utility on DraftKings. I already have Dwop Reith and Keita Bates Diop.
Wait, what'd you say?
Super chat. Best 5K player under on for a utility, not Reith or Bates.
Who's
Exum?
Okay.
It's gotta be Exum, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Exum's the guy I have the most, at least.
Yeah, for me, it's Exum, Okongwu. In terms of my exposures right now, Exum 1, Okongwu 2.
Yeah. What do I have Exum projected for? I mean, from a projection standpoint, like Mo Wagner, Okongwu are higher. So, at least for me. Let's go to San Antonio. 9% ownership to Chetty. 9% ownership to Devin Vassell. Single digits across the board for everybody else. 14 to Chetty on FanDuel. 4,200 there. I have 7% Vassell, 5% Wemby. There's just not a lot here. This is not a great matchup. Chicago 29th in pace.
Yeah, not a great matchup. I am getting to 15% Chetty right now, which I don't like, but he's only pulling 9% ownership. Started last game, did play 32 minutes. I don't think you can, I don't think that's set in stone at all. But at very little ownership at 4,700, I don't mind getting there. For example, I'm basically playing him at the same rate that the field's playing Alex Caruso. I have no real issue with that. I'm getting 11% Vassell. That's down from this morning, but still slightly over the field. 6,400, moved to the starting lineup, played 31 minutes. I don't have any problem with that. I'm getting a 2% Wemby, which is always nice, but
yeah,
tough to get to 8,800.
Two Up Investing said, Sims always under project Detroit opponents. Bane and Brunson are the latest examples. What am I missing? Trying to learn more. Thanks. Sims don't project anything. So that would be the first piece of this. That's a different thing altogether. And Bane and Brunson are just n equals 2 for an equation in a season that's only had like 18 games or whatever. You're not missing anything, but you're reading into something that likely doesn't exist.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
that's just
and to your point, yeah, the Sims are simulating based on the projections, which is a total different thing based on projections models. So like if you're like if check the projections like separately.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what source you're using or whatever. If you're using a quality source and the projections pass the eye test, chances are it's just randomness that whoever did better. But it's two separate things that work together.
I would not read into Desmond Bane and Jalen Brunson having good games in general. They're good players that have good games. Mm-hmm. That's what good players do.
Right. Like you can have, like, I have no idea what their actual median projections were that game, but Bane going for 70 whatever is obviously like a 99th percentile. But
yeah,
if let's say Bane goes for like 55 DraftKings points, you're like 2 standard deviations probably, if that, above his median projection.
Yeah, that sounds right. Houston Rockets, 9.5 point dogs in Denver, 221 total. Everybody that's normally available for this one is, including Jamal Murray being probable. There is no ownership coming into Houston. 3% to Tari Eason, 3% to Jabari Smith. I have a literal 0.
Really tough team to get to here. I have 3% Van Vliet, 1% apiece Brooks and Jabari Smith. These are all things that if I were to, for the 4th time on this show, rerun my stuff, I might have 0. It's just randomness that these guys are showing up at all. Again, it's the playing time's there. You're not worried about that. It's just on a 13-game slate, there's a lot of guys that look very comparable to each other. There's going to be a million guys that look like Van Vliet, a million guys that look like Brooks, Smith. There's 100 centers that are cheaper than Şengün. So just a tough team to get to in a pretty unappealing environment.
On the Denver end, no ownership coming into the Denver Nuggets. I do have 1 share of Nikola Jokic, so that's probably going to be my path to victory. But these guys are completely unowned, and outside of Nikola Jokic, I think they should be.
Agreed. And I have 1 Jokic lineup right now. If I got more, great. But when I'm paying up at center, Embiid's going to be easier to get to. He's a little bit cheaper. But really, I'm just not getting that far up the salary spectrum.
Projections is a fancy word for guess.
Sort of.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's speaking for Josh. We both think that it's Adam. Depends what we're playing. I'll take my chances in baseball.
I think this was my best baseball season in like the last 4 years, but
really?
Yeah.
Maybe I just don't remember it because like we didn't talk about baseball for the final like 2 months of the season.
Yeah, I had a 100K baseball win.
Early or late?
Late. I also had a 25K baseball win late.
I had a couple 50s.
Yeah.
I would say you for NBA, but I would be willing to like take my chances in the baseball side.
I think if I was going to give you a sport, it would probably be soccer.
Don't say like League of Legends or something stupid.
No, I'm pretty good at League of Legends. I would don't
give me soccer.
No, I was going to say actually right now I would give you large field MMA.
Fair. Nice trophy.
Yeah. Well, like honestly, you've just put a lot more work into it than I have lately. Like
it's funny because I haven't played it in ages.
Right. Yeah. I think you've gotten better.
I do love it. Though.
I'm okay at avoiding dupes in MMA. I do think I've just run really poorly lately. Like I've had a lot of MMA slates where it's just like, oh, if the main event breaks this way or the co-main breaks this way, I win, and it just doesn't break my way. So I think I'm partially underestimating myself at MMA right now just based on results, but I do think you've done a better job of avoiding dupes than I have. Like I'm decent at it, but I think you've been better at it.
I appreciate that. Josh knows Adam sucks at NBA. Yeah, that I don't think. Adam, when are you going to win a tournament in NBA? And Mark wants to know.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It sucks. A huge downswing.
Man, I wish I had some Jokic. Anything else here for Denver?
No, I barely have Jokic even.
Yeah. All right, final thing to talk about, guys. That's going to be OddsShopper. We should be touching on it more, honestly, because the product has changed pretty dramatically. We have lowered the price, and we now provide even more things for you. But what we're really doing with OddsShopper is we are taking a market-based approach to beating the books. So if you're on the sports betting side, you're going to get expected value and expected win rates for sides and totals and props and all of that good stuff. And you're able to shop around for the best line that you can find. You can't really get any data in a more easily digestible fashion than what you're getting for OddsShopper. If you're on the pick'em side, it's the same deal. Prize picks, underdogs, sleeper. You can get all of that same information that I talked about on the sports betting side on the pick'em side as well. It's going to make your life way easier. We've got like parlay calculators and pick'em card calculators that will help you build everything that you want to do for that day. Or you can just hop into Discord, check out the expert picks for all the people that are in the expert picks section on Discord. That's gonna be like your Eric Lindquist, your Ben Razes, your Atons of the world. Go check it out. Lofty poking his head in there from time to time. I'm sure I'm missing a countless amount of people, but OddsShopper is where it's at now. You can get in for $15 for the week. What you're getting now in comparison to price, it's a fantastic option if you're on that sports betting side or on the pick'em side. So go check out OddsShopper, link in the description. Sacramento Kings, 2-point favorites in Phoenix, 235 total. Not sure if the Poker Pro is around to give us any details on Sacramento. Maybe you don't get them if the game is in Phoenix. I'm not sure. 4% ownership coming into Malik Monk. That's the high mark for anybody on the Kings. I have 3% of Fox. I thought they'd look better with this total, but these guys are just priced where they should be.
Yeah, so I'm actually getting a lot of Malik Monk now, which I don't hate. It surprises me, but I don't hate it. He's been playing big minutes. He played 32 last game. Now, granted, that was the in-season tournament game, but 14 games this season now where De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis have been in. He's still at 1.1 DraftKings points per minute in 25 minutes per game. Obviously, he can play more than that. I don't hate that I'm getting him. I'm surprised, like I said, but 6K point guard, shooting guard, no ownership. I'm getting a lot of him. Other than that, I'm getting 9% De'Aaron Fox and nothing else.
I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of Monk. Just those minutes have been up lately, but I just don't have it. I just don't have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those where, like, knowing that he's projected for 3 or 4% ownership, like I could find a lot worse random stands than Malik Monk at 6K, but it's also one of those where there's a really good chance that I'm looking at lineups later in the night and it's just like, oh man, this lineup's really good, except for some reason it has Malik Monk, and so does that one, and so does that one. Why do I have so much Malik Monk? Like, it feels like one of those types of plays, but there is clearly upside for him here. Like, the fact that people are getting, and myself included in some cases, getting to Brandon Miller at 5,900, getting to Caleb Martin at 5,900, I don't mind having Malik Monk at no ownership.
No, I wouldn't either. Phoenix is a little bit different. Less ownership than I was expecting. 6% to Eric Gordon on DraftKings, 28 on FanDuel, where he's 5,500. 10% ownership coming into Keita Bates-Diop on DraftKings, 26 on FanDuel, where he's only 4K. 17 to a $10,100 Devin Booker. I have 32, and I could not be happier about it.
I have 8, and I could not be more unhappy about it.
Let me amend that. I can be happier about it. I would happily take more.
Right. I am not thrilled about going into this slate. Half the field on Devin Booker. I mean, at least right now, half the field on Devin Booker and 1/10 the field on DeJounte Murray. But I do think it's the same reasoning. There are plenty of other guys in the Devin Booker range that can beat him. There are plenty of good guard plays that are less expensive. The value on this slate sucks. Like, for example, I don't have any Kenrich Williams. If that is costing me some Devin Booker, so be it. I would rather just be going more balanced. So again, like if by lock I have more Devin Booker, great. I would love to have more Booker. He's been over 1.5 fantasy points per minute this year without Beal or Durant on the floor. Usage rate is up around 38%. Assist percentage is north of 30. If you go back to the start of last year, he's at about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute without in full games without Durant or Chris Paul. But you do expect those rates to go up because for chunks of those games, at least, they had other secondary players. You had Payne, you had Mikal Bridges, you had Cameron Johnson. They traded all of their secondary scoring and secondary playmaking to bring in Beal and Durant. So now when you take them out, it is different than it was last year. So, obviously would like to be getting to Devin Booker, but I'm just not getting as much. My highest owned guy from Phoenix right now is Bates Diop at 11%. I only have 3% Nurkic, which is a change from this morning when I had like 45. This morning, I said I wouldn't mind being a little bit lower. I didn't really have 3% in mind, but he's another one. He's 7,200. So there are a lot of centers that are cheaper than him. Should see an uptick here in opportunities. He clearly should be the second scorer. But yeah, I'm really having trouble getting to this team, which is surprising to me.
I thought I would have more Nurk as well. I only have 4%.
Yeah.
And then I have 14% of Keita Bates Diop. I'm fine with that. I don't mind it. I thought I would get a little bit more here, but like Gordon's already at 6,300. That's hard. I don't feel great figuring out which of like Yuta Watanabe, Nas Little, Jordan Goodwin guys I should get to. So I'm just getting none of them.
Yeah, I'm getting very small amounts. And as far as Booker goes too, so for DeJounte Murray, the points per minute that I have are in line with what he's done without Trae Young, but it scares me because I'm not completely understanding why he doesn't do better without Trae Young. For Devin Booker, I have him a little bit over 1.5 fantasy points per minute here, and I'm still just not getting him. That one at least gives me a little bit more confidence. Not that he's not going to have a big game. I'm not confident at all he's not going to have a big game. I think he probably does more often than not. But at least that one I'm looking at is saying like, all right, look, if I'm not getting to this dude at 1.5 fantasy points per minute, then so be it.
Anything else for Phoenix?
Nope.
Dallas Mavericks. 8.5 point favorites in Portland, 232 total. Dallas is without Josh Green, Maxi Kleber, and Grant Williams. We have 25% ownership coming into Dante Exum, single digits to everybody else. I have 49% Exum, point guard, small forward, 4,500. And I don't even think I have him projected all that well. 0.87 fantasy points per minute. I'm happy to get to Exum, assuming he's starting again.
Yeah, this is one of the value pieces I am actually getting. He's projected for 26% ownership. I have 46%. Point guard, small forward is just really valuable. 4,500 is a good price tag. He played real minutes in his start last game, and it's just difficult to see how he wouldn't, given that he does have the length to defend multiple positions. And Dallas needs that right now because that is Josh Green's job and it is Grant Williams' job, and neither of them are currently doing it. So it's just easy to see how those minutes show up for Exum. Other than that, I'm not really getting to this team, which on one hand, I'm fine with. I lost all of my, or not all, but almost all of my ridiculously huge Tim Hardaway stand this morning. I'm fine with that going away. I only have 5% Derek Lively. That's my second highest owned guy here behind Exum. I would have no issue if I were getting a bit more of him. Again, like I have 45% of Kongwu. I really would prefer some of that to turn into Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. I am already getting Orlando Robinson, like I said, but the field's only getting to 3%. So like I'm still a little bit higher.
I got 9% of Lively. I have 3% of Luka. I wouldn't mind having a little bit more Lively, but center is just loaded. People were not happy that I recommended Dante Exum on the Contenders video today. Like he wasn't one of the like 5 highest owned guys when I recorded that video.
I mean, it feels gross.
He's a different guy. Well, he's a different guy now. Like he went to Europe. He played his way back into the NBA. He doesn't have like the same set of expectations that he had as a top 5 pick from 8 years ago or whenever the hell it was.
Yeah, for the season, he's at 1.02 DraftKings points per minute. Granted, that hasn't been as a starter, but at 4,500 with the increased playing time, you don't need him to maintain that. He's played 61 minutes alongside Luka. He's still at 0.9 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah. Like I said, I have him at 0.87, so I don't think that I'm being like overly lofty. And I think that he can play 30 minutes. Like I have him at 26 minutes. I think that's basically the floor assuming this game is if this game can be competitive.
And also, 112 minutes alongside Kyrie this year, not accounting for Luka one way or the other. 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Worth pointing out because they did stagger him and Luka last game, so he was with the second unit along with Kyrie when Luka was on the bench.
I like it. Dante Exum season, baby. Portland side, Black. I would have bet a large amount of money that Malcolm Brogdon got ruled out already. He is still questionable. Makes me think that he's just not as hurt.
I think they just like tune out. They just start playing like white noise when the trainer starts telling them about Brogdon and ignore what they're saying. Like they do not care about this guy's health.
No. 20% ownership to Dwop Reith, 27 to Anthony Simons. I have Malcolm Brogdon in. I have 6% to Monty Kamara, but I am 2xing Simons and 3xing Dwop Reith.
Yeah, also have Brogdon in right now. I'm getting 75% Anthony Simons anyway.
I think you should. Yeah, I wish I had more.
Yeah, this is another example of someone that got a very quick price jump on DraftKings, but that's because his previous price tag was an absolute joke. He was 5,500. He immediately came back into the starting lineup and played 37 minutes. Efficiency should just get better going forward as he, just gets back into playing NBA games. 6,800 is a very, very good price tag, and it's only going to look better if Brogdon is out. Reith pulling 21% ownership. I have 37%. I'm fine with that. Played 22 minutes last game. I expect something similar here, but he's around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy, slightly above that. And he's just going to look like a pretty good value on a slate where you don't have a lot of it. So, I haven't had a lot of these random cheap guys, Kenrich Williams, Danilo Gallinari, guys like that. Just give me more Dwop Reith at 4K. Give me more Dante Exum at 4,500. I'm perfectly fine with both of those.
Yeah, like, do I like it? No, but I think, 22 minutes with a slight possibility that he can close is really all that I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, he got in some third quarter foul trouble last game.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have played a little bit more there. Like, I don't think 24, 25 minutes is, even from a projection standpoint, is crazy. I think there's some percentage of games where he does play 27, 28. I don't think that's the most likely outcome. I do think it becomes more likely if Brogdon is out to some extent, just because you're removing more minutes. Obviously Brogdon didn't play in the second half last game. Reith still didn't close, but you are at least like removing some more minutes there. If Brogdon's out, again, it's going to make Simons look better. He already looks great. It makes Sharp look better. He played the entire second half without Brogdon. You don't expect that again, but there are more opportunities for him. There is more playing time available. Matisse Thybulle started the second half. He probably plays a bit more. It's notable that we didn't see Skylar Mays in the rotation in the second half. That's somebody that, if you told me he was going to start in place of Brogdon, I wouldn't be shocked. But based on last game, you can't really give him anything else. Chris Murray played 21 minutes. He's essentially min salary. But for right now, the only guys I'm getting to are Simons and Reith. If Brogdon's out, that does open up some more.
Did Moses Brown bang Billups' wife or something?
He just cannot get in the rotation.
It's like, how many centers have to go down for Portland before they play one of their other centers? Like, why have him? What is Portland doing if Moses Brown can't be a guy that can play? Like, if you're already down Ayton and Robert Williams, why is Moses Brown even on your G League team?
Yeah, it's.
We
actually got that right last game, that they were going to just go to more wings instead of Moses Brown. But it's surprising that that's the case, kind of.
It just doesn't make it. And he's been fine in the appearances he's made previously. It's not like we don't know anything about Moses Brown, and at practice he's just he's played NBA minutes already.
Yeah. I think the one counterpoint is when you look at, it's not like they went to random dudes instead of him. Getting Chris Murray minutes isn't the most surprising thing. Obviously, Jabari Walker getting minutes is not surprising. Yeah. Thybulle is in the rotation. Kamara's in the rotation.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not like they went, with Jared just the first random name I thought of, the Wizards, Jared Butler. It's not like they just grabbed some guy that you didn't even know was on the Blazers and threw him ahead of Moses Brown.
Ibu Baji.
Is that somebody on the Blazers?
It is. Jamari Bouye.
Right, yeah. They didn't go
He's a point guard. He's a point guard.
But yeah, you didn't have you didn't have actual players that you didn't know existed playing ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree that Moses Brown is just not that good, but also neither is Portland.
Yeah.
We got to act like he's not getting blocked. This isn't Wally Pip.
Right, but there is a case that we've seen Moses Brown play. You haven't really seen Chris Murray get NBA minutes yet.
Sure. Yeah. I would have just expected Moses Brown at some point in time to be allowed to at least like slightly participate.
I mean, I would have thought a couple weeks ago that Moses Brown would be Duop Reith in this situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Reith has played the whole year, like the whole past month. He has appeared in every game.
Yeah. Well, and we saw when, Ayton didn't play a month or so ago, they went to Reith. But at that time, I think it was, who is this guy?
Correct. So yeah, I have 52% Simon, 63% Reith. I don't expect either of those numbers to really change. Anything else for Portland, though?
No, right now, the only two I have are Simons and Reith.
I have 6% Kamara and 3% Thibault, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. 2,200 people in here. We're over 200 likes. If we can get that number up and over 300, that would be great. We're going to turn this one over to Live Before Lock shortly. Not a lot to say for this one. Clippers, 7.5 point favorites in Utah, 225 total. 10% ownership to Zoo, Harden, Leonard, just 5 to Paul George. I have very little here of the Clippers.
I have a little bit more. I definitely have more than I did this morning. I have 19% Kawhi. I have 14% George. So this is finally starting to answer at least some of the question of where the hell my DeJounte Murray exposure is going. Getting to 8K Kawhi Leonard, same price tag. I'm close to 2x the field there. Paul George at 8,600. I'm like 3x the field at 14%. I have 7% Harden at 7,900. So that is part of the answer, at least, to who am I playing at 8K that is not DeJounte Murray?
I like that though. Like I'd rather it be reallocated from someone that isn't Murray, but
right.
Like I like the idea of doubling up on Kawhi and Paul George and stuff in a matchup against Utah.
Yeah, I have no problem with the fact that I am playing more Kawhi Leonard and Paul George at 1/4 and 1/8 the ownership respectively from DeJounte Murray. Now, are there ways I could have gone about this where I was just playing DeJounte Murray and still over the field on George and Kawhi? I'm sure I could have, but there definitely could have been a lot of other names at 8 that I'm playing at 8K that I would have felt worse about than these guys.
Marquee Music Group wants to know thoughts on Camera.
Thoughts on who or what?
Camera.
Oh, you have 6% Camera.
I do have 6% Camera, I guess, but I don't really have any thoughts. I mentioned my exposures. He's one guy in a list of a bunch of guys.
Well, someone earlier asked if I had new lighting, and so when you said Camera, that was the first thing I thought about, and I was like, at the actual last minute of the show, you're asking tech questions?
No. Yeah, he's just a guy. Probably like the 100th best play you can get to today.
Yeah.
Something.
Daniel Tice is questionable now, which is interesting. If he's out,
I think he just becomes Tucker, right?
You would think, but I think you could maybe get some more Zubats.
I don't know how much they care against Utah.
Yeah, true. And I don't have any Zubats right now. I was getting him earlier. I'm not right now.
It could also just be like Diabate for and Tucker are both getting like 8.
Yeah. Zubats is another $5,500 center that is perfectly fine.
Final team to talk about, Utah Jazz. They are full stop unowned across the board. And that's how I have it.
I have 3% Kessler, and that is the only guy I have from Utah at the moment.
Yeah. It's by the way, Jordan Clarkson
in their 50-point loss the other day.
Jordan Clarkson probable, Kelly Olynyk probable. There's nothing here. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Underdog was the sponsor. Very happy to have them. You guys didn't hit the like button enough. Adam, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Nope.
Perfect. Talk to you guys later. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you guys Monday. Peace.
We are back for another edition, a huge edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Coming at you hot, fresh off $1 million winner for one of our subs. And man, that is awesome. All you got to do to get involved. Now, he might not need a free sub anytime soon, but you want to get a free sub, $200 value, whether it's NBA, Sims package, everything, NFL, everything, up to $200 for the month. All you got to do, and to get inducted right here in the Stochastic Hall of Fame every single week, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF. You finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, got a free month. Any Stochastic package you want, up to $200. And, of course, induction right here in the Hall of Fame. Let's get started. First up, Short Gamer TV. Wow. Or what a Sunday. Wow. Shout out to the Stochastic team and the Sims. Couldn't have done it without them. 1 million. Short Gamer TV took down the Millie yesterday. Obviously a very sharp dude, but utilizing the stochastic tools, the sims, all of it comes full circle. It's a beautiful thing. Shout out to Short Gamer TV. That has to be the greatest feeling in the world. $1 million win to kick off the week. Peter Hanley's back on the board. What's up, Peter? Got to get that free month and get to play a lot of NFL tomorrow. $13,000. Look at that three-way chop in the NBA showdown fadeaway, followed by Maxwell Miller. Got second in the 65K NFL spike on FanDuel yesterday. Thanks to all of you for helping me become a better DFS player. $3,000 win, second place for Maxwell. And Michael Yamada, multiple mini-mag. I love seeing these because remember, doesn't matter if you're entering 25-cent, 5-cent contest, doesn't matter what you win. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the contest, you're in. Free month and up here. Minimax takedowns on DraftKings and a three-way chop for first on Owner's Box. We've been seeing a lot of Owner's Box wins pop up lately. Thankful for the NBA Sims tool as well as the amazing content. Shout out to Michael for 4 takedowns there. Braden, think I'm finally figuring out how to get the word out, Stochastic. Finished second in the Minimax last Sunday at Owner's Box. Again, the tools, especially the Sims, are making a big difference for me this year. Congrats, Braden. And Michael Phillips, Stinger 22, $3,000 win. Sims tool already paying dividends. You love to see it. How about Kevin Cutler? Biggest win so far for me. Thanks to Stochastic and the usual suspects. Haven't even started working with the Sims yet either. Watch out. Let's see that name in lights again. $5,000 for Kevin Cutler yesterday. We keep going. Big ones this week. Brett Shoup, little late posting this one. Another hit due to the awesome Live Before Lock videos. The data is real, my friends. $5K for Brett as well. And Mike Marks, Stochastic Hall of Fame, 3 fire emojis, $250. Second place in the 5K Minimax with Sean Geezy following up 2 in a row. Second out of 36K entries in the 15K Mini. Shout out to the crew as always. Then he had another one. He's up here a lot. Sean's up here a lot. Another Minimax win. Shout out to Stochastic crew for the best tools in the game. $500 takedown there. We go to AJJ or AJ245, one or the other. Just shouting out the guys at Stochastic again. Best tools and best knowledge in the game. It's helped me become a better DFS.
Yeah, I'm ready. What is happening, everybody? And it's always a pleasure. Friday night, which means what? It means Eric's gone, and that's always good. I've been trying to get rid of him forever, and Fridays he just happens to request nights off, which is good. I get to break down the slates. My friend Matt Belman here. We're sponsored by Underdog. They got a free square for us. Over under 0.5 yards for Dak Prescott, which everybody around here knows that's going to be an over, except for maybe Mike. Producer Mike Lawrence, he might take the under on Dak Prescott for over 0.5 total yards because, we know that he's a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. coming off one of their better performances of the season. So if you guys are looking to sign up at Underdog, use that link below, get access to the Dak Prescott over 0.5 yards for the big game against the Eagles. And you also get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Matt, how's your week going?
Going pretty well, man. Yeah, nothing really special over here, which is always good in a house with a wife and a small kid. So yeah, pretty normal, average, nothing type of week. How about you?
Yeah, it's a lot has happened. A lot has happened, but nothing that's important to this show or anybody who's watching. Just me being busy with general work stuff. And then, also, of course, just grinding some of the worst NBA DFS slates ever, which I've really disliked the 1 and 2 game slates. We get back to a normal schedule again next week. We've got the 1 game slate tomorrow, but then start and no games on Sunday. And then Monday, things are going to be back to normal. And tonight we have a 13 game slate to break down, Matt, which means no time to dilly-dally here. We've got a lot of players to talk about who are already out on the injury report. We've got players who are questionable. Some good news that just came in is that we do have Daniel Gafford in. So there's one piece of injury news that we don't really have to worry about. We don't have to worry about Gafford potentially getting ruled out as well while we're on the show. But the key players that are out for today, Trae Young, Kevin Durant, and then also to a lesser extent, Suggs being out is going to matter just because of some of the way that that's going to impact the backcourt for the Orlando Magic. So it opens up some plays for them for sure. But obviously the real 2 keys here, Trae Young being out, Kevin Durant being out. And where I want to start by talking with you is Trae Young, because the team that I get the most exposure when I run everything through our data, the Sims, contest generator, is I end up getting the most of Atlanta of any team on the slate. So that's where I think we should start here, is how high of a priority are the Atlanta players to you with Trae Young out tonight?
Well, Murray is a huge priority for me. I think he's one of the first guys you're starting with in basically all formats. He was in play at 8K, even if Young were in, which is just an average play at that point. But with Young out, he's way too cheap, even in a tougher spot against Philly. After that, I think everyone on Atlanta is in play, everyone that's in the rotation, that is. But I don't see anyone else as like a guy you have to roster. A lot of those other guys look similar to me. How about you?
Yeah, so if I go ahead and look at, by the way, for reference, I'm playing 20 lineups today, not the 150 that I more frequently play. And the reason being is there's 13 games. They're just not my favorite slates. The 13 game slates, the 2 game slates, I like stuff in between. I like the 4 to 9 game NBA slates, something around there. But playing 20 lineups today, and I do get to a lot of players from Atlanta. So how is the way you asked me the question? Are there any cheap guys that I'm prioritizing, or just
is there anyone else besides Murray that you think is a priority?
Yeah, so Sadiq Bey is in a bunch of lineups for me. Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu also shows up in lineups. Those are the guys that I call. I think I'd call Bogdanovich somewhat of a priority as well. So the easy answer is yes.
Fair.
It's a team where, even though there's a 13 game slate, Matt, and there are a handful of players that are out, there aren't that many great value spots. And the Atlanta Hawks really do stand out. And that's why, you look at the projected ownerships here. We've got DeJounte Murray projected for north of 40% ownership, Bogdanovich at 30%, Capella at 24%, Sadiq Bey at 26%, Hunter at 10%, Okongwu at 21%. It's a couple of things. Number one, the pricing has just generally gotten to be a little bit more aggressive on both DraftKings and FanDuel as we've gotten into this season compared to other years, right? When players are questionable, they're generally more aggressive. But Trae Young wasn't on the injury report until after today's pricing came out. Just have all these guys who are mispriced. And then you start to look at some of the other players on the slate that are kind of popular on the cheap end. And it's guys like Kenrich Williams at $3,200. We have Kenrich Williams projected for 15.6 fantasy points. And he's one of the most popular punt plays on the entire slate because it's how weak the value is today. So I really don't mind these cheapish Hawk guys who are all a little bit mispriced.
Yeah, I get that. I think they're all good plays relative to a lot of other guys on the slate. It is interesting to me. Well, not really interesting, but one reason I don't like them as much in tournaments is you look at our boom bust tool and you see the leverage, and you see the negative leverage. Atlanta has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10 guys in negative leverage on the slate. So, and Bey, Murray, Bogdanovich, Okongwu, Capella, all those guys are getting a ton of ownership, and it makes sense because exactly what you said. I do think there are like other spots on the slate. Like, I don't think you want to play all chalk with all your lineup, but NBA is so projectable that there's a reason those guys are getting love. So I think playing those guys, even a bunch of them together, with a lower owned guy or two, makes a lot of sense in tournaments if that's the route you want to take.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is with the amount of access we have to lower owned players on a 13-game slate,
Sure.
You could play 6 chalk players and then you get 2 contrarian guys in there, and the entire lineup is contrarian. So there are going to be some lower owned pieces that I like as well that I'm going to talk about as we go here, but I don't have any real issues with the Atlanta Hawks and the ownership that's going to them. And, it's still stuff that's being considered when I run all my lineups through our Sims tool. It's still those ownership of the players are being accounted for, and it's giving me lineups that are expected to be plus EV, even if individual players are very chalky. So I'll ask you this about the Atlanta Hawks then. Is there any player on Atlanta that's picking up a bunch of ownership that you do not like?
No, there wouldn't be like one guy I could single out and say, like, I think he's the guy you avoid or anything like that. All of them combined are getting too much love, but some of them are likely to succeed. 1 or 2 guys are likely to really, really succeed. And then like 2 guys are likely to fail, but I couldn't tell you which guys those are.
Yeah. And if you guys are watching the show and you're in the Discord channel, at me. And I really like, by the way, the new Discord updates. Not really pertinent too much to too much going on here. But if you guys are members of Stochastic.com and you're in the Discord channel, you can at me whenever you want over the course of the day or during shows. And I do like this new setup here. It makes it much easier to see my notifications and mentions in the latest Discord update. Mike, I have a question for you. There's some questions sitting here in the super chats. How many of those are from last show, and how many of them are for us on this show, if any?
I think that they were all answered, but I'll check for you.
All right, I'm gonna say unknown at the moment. We're gonna call that one an unknown. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't able to hear it there. So I want to make sure that all these questions got answered, and it's not the biggest deal in the world if I answer 2 questions twice. But Mike, when you get back to me on that, in the meantime, I'm going to answer the question that we have in the Discord channel. This one first coming from Hayes Stables. He said, it is never too early for the exotic play of the day. Let me see. Who are some of the white folks I'm liking tonight? Exotic play of the day. It's really not fun without Eric getting upset about the whole bit. But I mean, Bogdanovich. We've got Bogdanovich. And
both of them.
We've got 2 Bogdanoviches. And one of them Eric is in love with. The one that I like more is the one that he loves less, which is Bogdan from the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, just scenario with Trae Young being out, there's extra opportunity for Bogdanovich, both in terms of playing time as well as usage. So Bogdanovich fits the bill. Justin Just Locks is saying, besides Booker and Nurk, is there anyone from the Suns that stands out for a FanDuel GPP in a single lineup? So that is a spot that we could talk about next. Now, we've already hit on the situation with the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young being out. But how about the Phoenix Suns? Kevin Durant is out. Justin says that he likes Devin Booker. Sensible. He likes Nurk. Also sensible. Is there anybody else on the Suns that you are looking at as a priority? This is a FanDuel specific question that Justin asked us. But still, I think in general, we could look at the Suns and say, what is that we're liking from Phoenix without Durant?
So it is a little bit different on FanDuel because, Booker and Nurk look great on both sites, but Eric Gordon, who's been priced up on DK, is still pretty cheap on FanDuel. So he looks like, I wouldn't say like you have to play Eric Gordon, but he looks like a much higher priority on FanDuel than on DraftKings. On DraftKings, it's Booker, drop down Nurk to a big drop off after that. I think you can look at some of the cheap guys, but none of those guys stand out as priorities on a 13-game slate where you've mentioned there's just a lot of different players to choose from.
Eric, so not only is Eric Gordon a priority on FanDuel, he's a bigger priority for me than Devin Booker or Yusuf Nurkic on FanDuel. When I look at the lineups that I have built out here on FanDuel, I mean, he's the player I get the most exposure to on the entire team. Now, that's not all that dissimilar from the field, right? Because we've got the field is playing Eric Gordon in 28% of lineups. Keita Bates-Diop is in 25% of the field's lineups over on FanDuel. So here's how I look at this team overall. I think that this is one of the best situations to target on the slate, with Eric Gordon being one of the best value plays on FanDuel. And I think Nurkic and Booker are both under-owned. 5% Nurkic, 7% Booker without Kevin Durant. Those are 2 guys to be overweight to. They are under-owned on FanDuel. And then Keita Bates-Diop, where he's 4K and project for 25% ownership, I think he's over-owned on FanDuel. So that's how I would look at this team right here, is that I think that Booker and Nurkic, these are guys who should have in like 15 to 20% of lineups. I'd be considering them in single entry. Gordon's a core play, and I like being underweight to Bates-Diop as a chalk option there on FanDuel. You mentioned DraftKings being a little bit different, though, Matt. Who do you like on DraftKings that maybe you don't like on FanDuel, or is it a situation you just feel like the Suns players are kind of appropriately priced?
I think they're definitely appropriately priced, except for Booker, and probably Nurk's probably appropriately priced. He's going to be their second option tonight, but Booker looks like the priority for me. Just too cheap without Durant. No Bradley Beal also. Great spot against Sacramento. I mean, Booker is the top guy in our boom bust pool, getting 18% ownership. I'm fine with that. Only a 13% chance of being optimal, but I think that has more to do with just how big the slate is. Really, really like Booker here.
Yeah, Devin Booker is the Suns player I get the most exposure to on DraftKings. I think he's underowned as well over on DK. So on FanDuel, I think he's underowned at 7%. And on DraftKings, I think he's underowned at 18%. I think he's worth having more exposure to that. And Devin Booker, one of my priority pay-up options over on DK. He should be doing everything for this team. There's still no Bradley Beal. There's no Kevin Durant. I haven't even thought about Bradley Beal in like a month until I just brought his name up right there. I was looking through the injury report. It's like, all right, Bradley Beal is supposed to be on this team as well. So Devin Booker, a really, really high priority play for me on DraftKings, and also think he's somebody who's going a little bit overlooked there. Let's go and see what other questions we're getting in the Discord channel. This one is from Hippo wants to know, do you and I do tip to tip, or is that just an Eric and I thing? It's something that Eric forces on me. Matt is a much more accommodating human being. He doesn't force me into uncomfortable sexual situations, so it's more of an Eric thing.
I haven't been invited yet, so.
Yeah, fair. That is, how could you decline an invite that you haven't received yet?
Exactly.
And then we got a Miami High Life wants to know, who are my favorite pay-up plays and value plays for a DK GPP? So let's look at both ends, Matt. On the high end, who's your favorite expensive option on DK? And on the low end, who's your favorite value option?
Booker's the top expensive guy. If you're talking about like the elite expensive guys, which is now like a 3-tier Doncic, Embiid, Jokic, it's probably Luka here. He's been amazing the past couple of games. Really good spot against Portland. I think you can make strong cases for the other guys too. I'm going to go really off the board with the cheap guy I like here. And you've talked about it. There isn't a ton of value on this slate, especially like value that, differentiator value. A guy I like a lot in that role is Cason Wallace for Oklahoma City. This is just from kind of like a watching no ball standpoint as opposed to projections. So with a guy 3,700, I don't mind taking some shots like that. He's been playing more minutes. He got hurt in the middle of the last game and still got, I think, 25 minutes. Now he's not like a great points per minutes guy, but he's 3,700. We have him projected for 15.5 DraftKings points, 4% chance of being optimal, slightly under that in ownership. I'm going to call him out at 3,700. And yeah, obviously I don't think it's like a slam dunk, but it's tough to find those type of guys on this slate. How about you?
Yeah, so on the high end for me, it is going to be Devin Booker. I just can't believe he's not more popular. He's on FanDuel. He's more expensive on FanDuel at 1080. He should be more than 7% owned. Brought that up before. Then on DK, 10-1, project for 18% ownership. So Devin Booker, that's my favorite pay-up option on DK. If I'm going cheap, it's hard to really find guys to feel, terrific about. But one guy who's not picking up that much ownership that I feel like you and I have probably brought up, I don't know. I think, has Andre Drummond come up on like 3 of the last 4 Fridays or something like that? But Drummond's only project for 6% ownership. All the cheap value generally sucks on this slate. And this is a guy who could score a lot of fantasy points and not a lot of minutes. A few games ago, he played 13 minutes, scored 31.5 fantasy points. Is that an outcome we should expect? No, but this is a guy who's topped at 15 minutes over the course of the last week, and he scored 20 or more fantasy points in all of those games. So Andre Drummond is somebody who could score a lot of fantasy points really quickly. And if he's not going to pick up ownership on this slate at $4,200 on DraftKings, I feel better about him than some of the guys who have 5-6x the ownership of him, are priced similarly, are probably going to play a few more minutes, but are just not nearly the same fantasy producer he is.
I always love Drummond in tournaments, and tonight's no different. I really like the mid-tier center tonight, so I'm not getting there. But personally, I would play him in single entry, any of those type of tournaments, way over. I'd play Duop Reith. I know that Reith projects better, but I think there are big concerns about like how many minutes he plays here, just based on what we saw last game. He got Walker and Kamara fouling out, still didn't play a ton. Like if Walker doesn't foul out, I think he's playing over Reith in a lot of those situations. So again, Reith projects better, but I really like the upside on Drummond. Good call out.
There's also, by the way, something else. I mean, Reith also got in foul trouble himself. So it was
okay. Yeah, you're right.
It's so hard to know like what would have happened if this guy didn't get in foul trouble. Like Reith was also like the whole team was in foul trouble. And also,
they
really
were
funny. I was watching the game on the Warriors broadcast. The Warriors were playing so shitty. The broadcast was trying to make it seem like, well, this Blazers team's pretty good. Like they're really bringing it to the Warriors. Like, nah, that's not what it is. This Warriors.
Isn't that the worst? I hate it when they do that.
Yeah, they're talking about like they got Duop Reith and they've got Kamara out here. I'm like, yeah, it's not that great for the Blazers. I will say this. For a team that is terrible, they have a lot of really fun athletes to watch, like Shaedon Sharpe, insanely athletic. Walker, also coming off the bench, crazy athletic. Reith, who I had honestly never heard of until a few games ago. He's massive and pretty athletic. Like he got on the court and I saw him shoot a three. I was like, oh, this guy kind of shoots a little bit too. Scoot Henderson also, crazy athletic. No good at all right now. But for a team that's bad, like this is the most fun way for a team to be bad.
Amara in that same mold, like super athletic, not good. They got a ton of those guys, and it's fun to watch for sure. And it puts them in good DFS situations for the opposing team for sure.
See what else we have as far as the questions go here. And let me go into the Discord to see if, there we go. So Mike had said at the time we're caught up on the super chats. So we've got a couple ones that have come in here. First, Weatherman 7. He has left us. I don't know if you've been on the show since Weatherman 7 returned, Matt, but he leaves us super chats, doesn't leave us questions. They're super chats with what are called stickers. And he likes to leave us sexy pair stickers. So this, and I don't know that's actually what they're called. It's what I call them now. So this is a pair that is working out, getting his reps in at the gym. Looks like he's doing some bicep curls and just says, keep it up. So Weatherman 7, thank you for the super chat and the motivational pair. Not a sexy pair today, but a motivational one. Then Riley Cooper wants to know if we did the nuke of the night yet. The nuke of the night, that's a trademarked bit. And I try not to step on it when it's Matt and I here. Eric doesn't give a shit. He does it when I'm not here, but it doesn't go both ways. But we could still go over this right here, and we could talk about who our favorite overall tournament play of the day is. And Matt, who's one player, all things being considered, ownership, price point, and all that, who's your favorite tournament play of the day? The other day, by the way, because we really have to shit on Eric for this, who looks, I mean, all right, he's made a TikTok account, and I know he's trying to get extra content out, promoted, so I'm not going to make fun of him too much for that, because as his boss, I approve of him trying to find alternate ways to grow his audience. What bugged the shit out of me, though, is Eric, who is 52 years old, goes on TikTok and tries to look young. He tries to dress cool. He's got a backwards hat on. Eric, I know what you're doing, and you're not fooling me, and you're not fooling those kids that come across your account on TikTok anyway. That aside, what is your favorite tournament play of the day, Matt?
I have to check out that TikTok account now right after the show. That's noted. My favorite play on the slate as of right now, presuming that Evan Mobley's out, Jared Allen. Different spot against Miami with no Bam in there. And without Mobley, excuse me, I think you're going to see more minutes, more rebounding opportunities. He's not going to get ownership. Give me Jared Allen as my favorite tournament guy on the slate who's not getting a ton of love.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how that might change when the Evan Mobley news comes out. We've got some time, right? That game locks at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Difficult matchup on the road against the Heat. It's not a game with a very high total, 222.5. It's like the fourth or something lowest total on the slate. But either way, when we look at that spot with the Cavs going up against the Miami Heat, how much of your lineups are you building with guys like Jared Allen or maybe other value players on the Cavs under the assumption that we could end up seeing Evan Mobley sit? Is it something you're willing to forego players from the early games in?
I mean, yes and no, because I don't think if you should play like Allen over Claxton, if you think Mobley's going to be out, but wouldn't play him if Mobley's going to be in. I happen to think he's a fine play if Mobley's in, so I'm fine playing him anyways. But I do think that's the talking point, right? With Claxton being basically the same price, locking in an hour. If Mobley's out, do you think Allen's a better play than Claxton?
Mobley's out. Do I prefer So, it's funny. I have more exposure to Jared Allen than Evan Mobley. I have more exposure to Jared Allen than Nick Claxton right now. And that's even with the assumption that Evan Mobley's in with our projections right now.
Okay, so there you go.
So yeah, I do prefer Jared Allen. And if I go ahead and look at some of my center exposures right now, like I get a good amount of Clint Capella. I'm not willing to forego him. He's going to be in lineups. I get to Jakob Poeltl as well. I'm not going to take him out. Okongwu, not going to take him out. I get exposure to Joel Embiid. Yeah, I guess I'm not going to be able to get to a whole ton of Jared Allen now, actually, as I look at my lineups, if we get Evan Mobley ruled out, because I really do like a lot of the centers that are locking early, and they're not guys that I'm willing to take out of lineups right now.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. There are a lot of good mid-tier centers on this slate.
Because I just looked through these guys, right? Like, I think Embiid, decent pay-up option going up against the Atlanta Hawks. We got the Capella and Okongwu. Each of them look decent. Poeltl in a good matchup against the Hornets. So, yeah, I mean, if we do end up seeing Mobley out, I'll probably get to, like, 15 to 20% of Jared Allen, but, like, not the way that you would think I would be jamming him on a normal situation with Mobley out.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, just because there's a lot of guys that look similar right now, arguably better with Mobley in, and we don't know if Mobley's going to be out or not. So I'm with you.
All right, let's go ahead and look at some more of the questions that we've got here in the super chats, as well as the questions in Discord. But Sean is asking us, any thoughts on Chicago? Any ownership? Thank you. So let's look at the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls. The player I have the most exposure to here is Andre Drummond, and he's somebody like the Drummond exposure I have right now. Like, that's a guy who would flip to like Jared Allen lineups if Evan Mobley's ruled out. That's the only guy I have more than 10% of is Andre Drummond.
Yeah, the Bulls have now been priced up with Levine out. DeRozan's fine. I almost said Cam Thomas, but Kobe White, excuse me. He's fine, but he's expensive now. So the Bulls are playable, but not priorities.
All right, let's see what else we have in here. Here's one other thing I'd mention. If I was playing a Bulls player that isn't Drummond, if you're hand building a lineup and want to get somebody, I would say DeRozan is the next best guy to get to, but I can't prioritize him at his price.
Yeah, same.
I have him in a couple lineups, but he's $8,400. We've got Hogwired. Hogwired says, what's the scoop with Darius Garland tonight? Some sites are projecting to be 0% owned. I would say those sites are wrong.
Yeah. I mean, 0% owned. There will be guys that just are going to not get love tonight because a lot of the ownership is concentrated, but 0 is, I mean, what do we have him projected for right now? We have him projected for 3% ownership. So
yeah, I mean, he's not going to be unowned tonight. He's not going to be, it's a 13 game slate. He's not going to be popular. We've got him for 3% ownership. It's super, super low, but no, the idea that he's going to be 0% owned is incorrect.
Of course, any player like that they're all going to be like, at least 0.5% to 1% owned in the big $15, like every relevant player.
All right, let's see what else. That answers all the super chats. And if you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, I want to shout out Eitan Shander. So Eitan, who many people know for a couple of reasons. They know him from doing his OddsShopper videos. You also might know him as being our resident crazy, insane person. But I love Eitan. And last night, he won a bunch of GPPs for Showdown last night. And he used the Sims tool. Eitan doesn't really know all that much about DFS. He only really started playing because of us releasing the Sims tools and me showing him how to use it and saying like, hey, it is, pretty simple to build lineups using this. So Eitan's had a lot of success playing Showdown. And Mike, can you put up on screen the screenshot I sent you? Because we had Eitan yesterday. He ended up tying with a handful of people, won the $3 last night on DraftKings. So won himself, I think it was in total like a little over $5,000 across all the lineups he played. And that was just by playing low dollar lineups over on DraftKings in Showdown and just clicked a couple buttons, went to our Sims tool, clicked the contest generator once, clicked the Sims button, simulate another time. Then he uploaded those lineups and won some tournaments last night. And I really want to say that that's as simple as it is for somebody who doesn't know a whole ton about DFS, isn't really manipulating their lineups on their own. Just really use the tools, trusted the data. And if you guys want to sign up for any of the Sims packages we have at Stochastic.com, there's a link for that below in the description box. We have everything covered under one package here. But now let's go back into Discord, which is one of the other things that you get access to if you're a Stochastic member, is get into our Discord channel. And right away here, we've got Hunt2422 asked, do I adjust the projection rank and the ownership percentage in the Sims tool, or do I keep it 50-50? How do I know what to put in based on what I'm playing? So Hunt, if you're running lineups through the Sims, you don't have to change that at all. What that sorting process is, the projection and the ownership slider, is if you just want to use lineups from the contest generator without simulating them, you could sort them based on weighting them by ownership and by projection. So that's something I used to do before I had access to a Sims tool, is I would build a bunch of lineups and I would sort them by just projections and ownerships because I didn't have a better way to do it. So I would recommend you just run your lineups through the Sims. You don't have to tinker around with the ownership rank or the projection rank. If you have more questions, you can DM me on Discord and I'll answer those afterwards. And then we've got a couple questions here. IC50, how much of Caleb Martin am I getting to? SA Johnson 98 said, thoughts on Caleb Martin? I'm getting a bunch of them and I'm nervous about it. So let's talk about Caleb Martin, Matt. He is projected for 12% ownership. He absolutely broke the slate that we saw a couple of days ago. And my best lineup also at Caleb Martin. I think it ended up finishing like 14th in the $15 on DK, and Caleb Martin was a big reason why for that. And I'm personally getting to a good amount of Caleb Martin. He's one of my most rostered mid-range players today. Is he somebody that you're getting too much of?
No, but he looks really good in our tools. Projected for 32.5 DraftKings points, 20% chance of being optimal, only 11.5% ownership. I really like him in tournaments. I might have to change that.
Yeah, I think that he is one of the best overall plays on the slate relative to what his price tag and ownership is. Maybe there's a little bit of sticker shock with people looking at Caleb Martin going, oh, he's $5,900. But keep in mind, he started last game. He played extended minutes. He kicked ass. So you have to assume he's going to continue to play a pretty substantial role for the Heat. Kind of like, do you remember what we saw from Caleb Martin in the playoffs last year? Where off the bench,
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to stand by this because I'm still kind of triggered by this. He should have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP last year. As dumb as it sounds, he lost out on Jimmy Butler by 1 vote to an Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He was putting up massive games. I bet on him to. I forgot about this until right now. Also, now I can be tilted all over again. I bet on Caleb Martin to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I will not live that down. And part of it is certainly because Jimmy Butler and I have a big rivalry. But he was not the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Caleb Martin's way better than him.
That's hilarious. I remember it all too well now. He was really good from like a fantasy perspective too, making a ton of threes. I'm with you. Like with no hero, no Bam also. We saw Duncan Robinson for a while, like play really well from a fantasy perspective. He's actually having a good year, but now that Caleb Martin's like back, I'm with you. He looks like a really strong player.
Yeah, started last game 31 minutes. Even the game before he came off the bench, played 35 minutes. He's playing very, very big minutes right now. I like Caleb Martin quite a bit. The next question that we have here is coming to us from Cleveland27. He said, lively thoughts on FanDuel for a large field GPP. And Derek Lively is not somebody I'm getting to today. It's a 13-game slate. Like, there's a lot of guys. It's like, oh, this guy looks okay. Lively's one of them. But it's hard to really get exposure to everybody on a 13-game slate. He's somebody who didn't make the cut for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, this is exactly what you said. Like, especially someone like me who's playing minimal lineups. Like, my center spots are taken up. I like Claxton and Allen a lot. So those guys are priorities for me.
Next question that we have in here is from Hef Love. It says, last man in for a DK, 6K or under. All right, 6K or under.
Caleb Martin.
It probably is Caleb Martin because he is 5,900. Yeah, that's the answer. if he already has Caleb Martin in his lineup, I like to give people a second option because I assume pretty frequently, especially if somebody's in our Discord, there's a good chance they're already rostering the players that project the best and come up the best in our tools right here. So Caleb Martin is absolutely the answer. But if he already has Caleb Martin in his lineup, who is the next answer? Let's see. Clint Capella.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Clint Capella would be another one. Next question coming to us from... Where did it go? Oh, here we go. All right. My notifications, they disappeared for a second. Now they're back. Dr. 2-inch. Dr. 2-inch. All right. Sounds like this guy oversees the medical care of Eric Lindquist. Says, I would love to bring back the Neil's Nobody's picks. Those were always fun. Just something to consider. I agree with you, but it's like not that much different from us doing contrarian picks also. It's just different.
I don't know if I never even heard of the Neil's Nobodies.
It was alliteration for tournament picks.
I like the way it rolls off the tongue though.
Yeah. So here's, all right. I hate to unveil the curtain here. Nuke of the night, Neil's Nobodies, favorite contrarian tournament play. It's all the same thing with different wrapping around it. Some of it has animation, some of it has alliteration, some of it doesn't, but it's all kind of the same.
Next, you're going to tell me Santa isn't real, right?
Other than the fact that Eric the other day gives out Bogdanovich as like his favorite like tournament play, and Bogdanovich is being the most popular play on the slate, who he was like underweight to also because he was insanely popular. So we'll take that part out of it and move on here. But Dr. 2-inch, the way that I would answer this question would be the same as what I did before, which is who's a really low owned guy that I like quite a bit. I think Neil's number was like sub 5% owned or something like that. And so to me, like I would say, I mean, Drummond's right around that mark. He would still be my guy.
I'm going to say under 5% owned. I think it's Jared Allen as of right now. He's coming in with really low ownership. Fair. If not, I'm going to say Toumani Camara, especially as a pivot off of chalky Dante Exum.
Next question here is from RLOGZS. I don't know how to pronounce that. RLOGZS. He's asking us Brunson or Maxey for a FanDuel GPP. Let's see, Brunson or Maxey? Brunson or Maxey?
Brunson.
I mean, if you have the salary, Maxey's $800 more expensive, so it projects for 4 more fantasy points, right? If you're leaving, like, don't leave $800 on the table. If it's just 1v1, you have the salary, Maxey.
I was just answering who I thought the better dollar for dollar play was, but you're absolutely right.
Let's go ahead and look at some of these questions that we are getting here in the YouTube super chats. And then also, guys, don't forget, one of the easiest ways you can take advantage of some money today, sign up at Underdog using the link we have below and go play Dak Prescott for over 0.5. Over 0.5. You just need 1 rushing yard, 1 passing yard, and you're going to get a win. Easy free square there when you sign up at Underdog. Get access to that Dak free square. Fantasy Guru 76. Fantasy Guru 76 is asking us, must play point guard and then 4 to 5K best small forward on FanDuel. All right, so overall best point guard play on FanDuel has to be DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
All right. So Eric just texted me, and because he got added in the Discord channel where Sick Mosh said, geez, Greg's going after Eric Lindquist heavy today. So Eric's texting me now trying to figure out what this is about. Listen, man, I'm just reporting the facts. I'll send him the laughing emoji. All right, so we're going to go DeJounte Murray at point guard, and then best 4 to 5K play for small forward on FanDuel. 4 to 5K. 4 to 5K. Jabari Walker again.
I agree.
Not crazy popular, 12% owned. Got him project for mid-20s fantasy points. Fouled out last game, but he was going to close, and he was on his way to having a really big game if he wasn't fouling dudes for no reason at all. Like, it was totally unnecessary. The foul he got before, so Because I had live lineups the other day. So I'm watching the games. I'm like, all right, I need Jabari Walker to score some points. I need Anthony Simons to finish, because I was like 6 points out of first in the $15 on DraftKings. And I finished in like the nut low position where it was like 14th or whatever. It's like 14th is like $700. And then it's like, oh, cool. If I would have scored 3 more fantasy points, I would have been third for like $25K that night. So I really need Anthony Simons and Jabari Walker to do shit during the stretch of the game. And Jabari Walker just decides, I'm taking the dumbest fouls of all time, solely to probably screw with me, if we're being honest. I can't imagine there's any other reason he would have done it. Like, he gets beat by Dario Saric. Dario Saric kind of dribbles around him, and he decides he's just going to like lazily slap his arm, pick up a foul. So just the worst fouls ever by Jabari Walker at the end of the game. But I like going back to him. He's clearly somebody who, when the Blazers are shorthanded, like they're going to be tonight, Jeremy Grant's out again. Malcolm Brogdon, by the way, is questionable. If Brogdon's out, that's even more opportunity, especially for usage for other players. So I do like Jabari Walker.
I love Walker here. I think going back to him makes a ton of sense. I'm actually very grateful about him the other night. I won the $200 3-entry max with pivoting from Walker to Tamani Kamara, just because I thought the ownership level was pretty insane. And Kamara finished a point higher than Walker. I won it by like 1.5 points over Steve Buzzard, actually. He was right behind me. And a bunch of Walker lineups obviously were creeping. So very grateful for him that night, but I think he smashes tonight. So I'm with you.
Steve Buzzard, the CFO here of Stochastic.
He's everywhere.
Did you send him some messages to taunt him?
I mean, I saw that I didn't play this that night, but I saw he finished in second or tied for first in like the 888. So I didn't feel too bad for him.
All right. We've got another super chat here. This one is from Almost Made. Almost Made is asking me Exum or Carson, or Kaysen, for a FanDuel GPP. And then he said, thanks always for the help. So FanDuel GPP, I know that you talked about liking Kaysen Wallace. If you're just playing one lineup, would you say Kaysen or Exum over on FanDuel?
I would say Exum. He projects a lot better. Kaysen's more expensive on FanDuel. On DK, Kaysen's 800 cheaper. On FanDuel, they're the same. So I'd play Exum.
Next super chat here. This is from SMP 1993. Any love for DiVincenzo as an Exum pivot? So DiVincenzo is going to be starting for the Knicks today for a couple of reasons. Number one, Quentin Grimes is not good. And then also, Quentin Grimes gave a very, very weird press conference the other day. He told the media, he was like, hey, if I don't make my first couple of shots, like, just take me out of the game because I know I'm not going to make any more the rest of the game. It's like, okay, that's a little weird. But that aside, I actually don't think that this really significantly helps DiVincenzo, him starting, because he's already been playing more minutes than Quentin Grimes. That's not going to change. But now he's playing with guys where you assume he's going to have lesser usage in the starting lineup than he did off the bench. So I do think that there are ways you could pivot off of Dante Exum, but is DiVincenzo somebody you're getting too much?
No, I think all your points make sense. I prefer. Oh, I was looking at FanDuel. I see he's 4,500 on FanDuel. How much is he on DraftKings?
Yeah, so on DraftKings, we have DiVincenzo. By the way, we just got a projections update. Let's see. Does DiVincenzo like project outstandingly well for us right now? And I'm going to look like an idiot? Not really. I mean, we've got DiVincenzo now as the starter, difficult matchup against Boston. For reference, we have DiVincenzo projected for 20.05 fantasy points at $4,600. And we have Exum projected for 23.02 at $4,500. So it's still, I mean, 3 fantasy point gap at like about the same price point. DiVincenzo is $100 more expensive. I would have to say Dante Exum is the guy to go to over DiVincenzo.
I agree. I actually like Kamara over DiVincenzo just because Portland's so much more of an unknown, especially with guys out, like with Brogdon out. Like, Kamara's the guy they're going to give minutes to. Like, he's long and athletic. He could, fall into fantasy points, I think, quicker than DiVincenzo, even though DiVincenzo's a better NBA player right now.
The next question is a super chat from Jorge Manzo. Jorge is asking us, small forward or power forward for 3,500 or under on DK? Okay, 3,500 or under on DK. So it's a forward. It's somebody's going to play in the forward spot for 3,500 or less.
I got one guy that's, I think, even playable here, and that's Chris Murray for Portland. Played 18 minutes, I think, last game. 21 minutes, scored 19 fantasy points. He was, Keegan Murray's brother, really productive in college. Like, he's got offensive game. No guarantee he plays minutes here. I think the point that you made about everyone being in foul trouble kind of allowed him to get minutes there. But Now you might not have Brogdon, and he's 3,300. So he'd be my guy there. I don't really see many others. How about you?
I think Kenrich Williams is at least viable, right? I mean, we got him projected for right around 16 fantasy points at $3,200. That's not the most exciting play on this slate, but he does have that forward eligibility. Also, is the center eligibility. Center eligibility doesn't help quite as much. But you can play him in the power forward spot, the center spot, the forward spot, the utility spot. So Kenrich Williams is a cheap guy. Like, I don't know if he sticks in my lineups as players get ruled out later in the night. There could be other value players that open up, which is, a nice little added benefit that we talk about a decent amount around here, is that if you do have a cheap guy who's in your lineups but locks later, this one being an 8 p.m. Eastern time start time, you do have the flexibility to swap out to other value plays that might open up. So I'll go with Kenrich as my favorite one there, but it's a thin favorite.
For sure. I get it.
Next question that we have here, and by the way, I don't think we've seen any real significant news that's come up of stuff that we really care about. I mean, we got the starting lineup for the Hawks, but it's what we were expecting. Murray, Bogdanovich, Hunter, Bay, Capella, and we don't have the news on the players who are questionable. So we're still waiting on Evan Mobley. Chris Paul is questionable. Malcolm Brogdon is questionable. And the Brogdon one, if he gets ruled out, like some of those cheap Blazers guys are going to look even better if Brogdon's out. We saw Brogdon start last game, but he only played, I think it was 13 minutes before he got injured. So if he doesn't go, it's going to open up all kinds of more playing time there. Let's see what else we have as far as questions go, and we'll try to answer as many of these as quickly as possible. And right now, it's funny how this happens. Like, we get these questions that are really related to something we just talked about. Miami High Life is asking us, do I have any of Kenrich Williams in DKGPP? Just talked about him. I have some. He asked about 30%. That's reasonable. There aren't that many cheap guys to really like on this slate. And just because you have him in 30% of your lineups at lock, it doesn't mean you have to have him past lock, right? Evan Mobley gets ruled out. Extra value opens up from the Cavs. You swap some lineups around. Maybe that 30% becomes 20 or 15%. Not my favorite play on the slate, but like, he's just a viable, cheap option.
Couldn't agree more.
Somebody in chat, Ryan, I want to make sure I answer this because it's not a super chat, but sometimes these questions to me are important ones you should be answering. Brian wants to know, is Stochastic, that is Mike Lawrence, an employee? No, Mike is not an employee. He just keeps showing up. We don't know how to get him to stop. He's like the guy from Office Space. Every day we're like, Mike pays us to be here. It's crazy. Mike pays us more than I get paid to do shows. Mike just keeps showing up, so we let him stick around. But yeah, Mike's producer.
My lineups.
Yeah, Mike's a producer, and he does the best that he can with the faculties he was born with. But what can you say? What can you say? The next, if that was your only handicap, you'd be in a good spot, Mike. The next super chat we have here is from RaceFan22. He wants to know Exum or Bates Chop on DK. I prefer Exum to Bates Chop.
Same, easy for me.
Let's see what else we have. I saw some other questions. I know somebody earlier, I don't know where it went, but here we go. G Bao is asking any priorities from the early game and any late news we should be paying attention to. Yes, there are a lot of priorities from the early games. You absolutely need to be getting exposure to the Atlanta Hawks. A lot of the best values from the early games right now. If we go through the different teams, from the Raptors, I like Pirtle quite a bit. There's nothing I love from Charlotte. There's nothing I love from Orlando or Detroit. From Atlanta, there's a ton of players that I like quite a bit. We got that Atlanta Hawks, no Trae Young tonight. So, I mean, that pretty much entire team looks fairly decent. That looks like players we should be getting exposure to. Most importantly is DeJounte Murray, though, and then a mix of guys like Bogdanovich, Capella, Bay, Hunter, Okongwu. And then Joel Embiid is a pay-up option, somebody I like as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of players I think you should be playing from the first three games. Anybody you would add to that list?
No, but it's definitely not one of those slates where you're just like avoiding the early games, because there are a bunch of spots. I don't think there's like, one or two guys you have to play, but there's a bunch of guys that are in play, with a few guys standing out more than others, as you mentioned, specifically Murray.
We've got a question here from Kenny Wayne. Kenny Wayne 256 is asking, is there any possible way to get Jokic on DK tonight without your lineup being terrible? It's tough to find value. I only have Jokic in one lineup right now. Basically, what you would need to happen is a bunch of guys get ruled out after lock and more value to open up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
C Love is asking me about DK tiers, so I'll rattle off my favorite tiers options. Jokic in tier 1, Booker in tier 2, Fox in tier 3, Mitchell in tier 4, Tier 5, there's so many guys that are super close, but Kyrie Irving in tier 5, and then tier 6, Paulo Banchero. Next question is from Einsteinium. Thoughts on Jared Butler? I'm not getting to Jared Butler. Are you?
I'm not. He does stand out in our tools as the highest graded leverage play on the slate. I wrote about that earlier. Don't really get it. Only projected for 14 DK points, but projected to be optimal 10% of the time the slate plays out. Like, that's wild, but it's true.
Next question that we have here is from Glacier. Said, what do we think about Orlando Robinson on FanDuel if Mobley is out? It's always hard to know what to do in those situations, right? Because if a key defensive player is out, it's really hard to know how to incorporate that into projections, but it does create for a slightly easier matchup. Orlando Robinson, not somebody who so I've also not played a ton of Orlando Robinson on some of the other slates that he's been popular lately. So Orlando Robinson, I like getting to other centers before him. It would be a slightly better situation for him should there be no Evan Mobley out there. But in the 20 lineups that I built on FanDuel and ran through obviously I made 5,000 and then ran them through the Sims. And then I just filtered out my top 20 lineups for FanDuel. Orlando Robinson was only in one of my top 20 lineups.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, especially for me. There's just so many other centers I slightly prefer. Doesn't mean I think he's a bad play, but Nurkic, Allen, Claxton, 3 guys who I prefer at their prices over Orlando Robinson.
Capanicella wants to know, who's the one guy we should be playing in single entry tonight? I'm going to say Devin Booker.
I agree.
Next question here, Tim Lee. So T. Lee wants to know, can we go position by position for him? Yeah. Did you play on DraftKings, FanDuel, both?
Just DraftKings tonight.
Okay, so how about you do it for DraftKings? I'll do it for FanDuel then. Your favorite player at each position, point guard for DraftKings. Who is it for you? And this, yeah, go ahead.
Point guard and shooting guard are going to be Booker and Murray. They're both dual eligible, so both those guys at those positions.
Yeah, I'm going to say Murray at point guard and then Anthony Simons at shooting guard on FanDuel. Small forward, that is going to be Caleb Martin for me on FanDuel. How about for you on DK, Matt?
On DK, I don't love small forward. I'm going to go with Exum. Exum / Derek Jones Jr. I like the Dallas guys here.
All right, power forward. What do you have there?
The Portland guys, Walker and Kamara.
For me at power forward on FanDuel, it is Sadiq Bey. And then center, who is it for you over on Sadiq? Oh, no,
if Mobley's...
my bad. I was looking at my DK lineups when I answered that. Power forward for me, I'm going to go Banchero.
Cool. Center for me is, if Mobley's in, Claxton. If he's out, Allen.
So for me at center, I am going with Clint Capella over on FanDuel. It would have been the same answer for me on DraftKings as well. Some super chats here that we have to get to. This one is coming to us from RaceFan22. We answered that when he asked Exum or Bates Shop. Prefer Exum. Pete Shepard wants to know, where is my mug of Eric's Tears? I should be bringing that back. There was a point in time I used to brand my water bottle. It had Eric's Tears on it over the DraftKings logo. It's a good point. I should be bringing that bit back. That was a good one. Tiptoeiness is asking us, Bogdan and Derek Jones or Hunter and Caleb Martin on FanDuel. I'm going to go Hunter and Caleb Martin. Malcolm Revamp, core options for DK and FanDuel. Who'd you call your core guys on DraftKings, Matt? And then I'll do core guys for FanDuel. Core group of guys to build around on DK.
Booker, Simons, Exum, one of Claxton, Allen.
So for me, I'm just uploading this file here. All right, there we go. For me on FanDuel, Murray, Martin, Banchero. DeRozan's a much better play on FanDuel than he is on DK. DeRozan's still only $8,100 on FanDuel as compared to the $8,600 price tag that he has over on DK. And then Anthony Simons and Eric Gordon. So those are my core guys that I'm getting to on FanDuel there. Next question is from Hogwired. Alex Caruso or Gary Harris on DK? Caruso or Harris? What's your preference there?
Caruso, but don't love either of them.
Yeah, Caruso for me as well. It's close though, right? Because there's no Zach LaVine, so Caruso is going to be getting a little bit of a bump there. Then for the Magic, there's no Suggs. We saw Gary Harris had a big game the last time Suggs was out. So I understand where the question is coming from. I'll agree with you. I'll go with Caruso. Next question we have here is from. No answer that. Oh, here. Gang Green wants to know Bogdan or Cam Johnson for DK single entry. Bogdan Bogdanovic over Cam Johnson. And then we have Gang Green wants to know, does Mike have a stapler? No, he does not, because that would be a hazard if Mike had a stapler around him. He would injure himself. So no staplers allowed for Mike. Einstein, is Gary Trent a core play for me? Is Gary Trent a core play for me? No. He's somebody I have in lineups, but not like a core play.
Yeah, agreed.
Boss Bro, Garland or Rozier? Garland. Yeah, I'm going to say Garland over Rozier. Also, you get the possibility if there is no Evan Mobley tonight, there's going to be a little bit more usage available.
A little bit, sure.
Snips wants to know, am I getting to Okongwu? Yes, I get to more of Clint Capella, but I also like Okongwu. Not in the same lineups as Capella, but he's somebody else to get to.
I dig it.
And there we go. We've answered all the questions. How are your lineups? You're all set and ready to go?
I'm finishing up right now, but I'm good to go. Yeah. How about you?
Yep. I've got everything setting in. I was doing that before. I was just uploading and making sure I had the right docs.
How do you feel about Cole Anthony?
Cole Anthony. So I like Cole Anthony quite a bit for tonight's slate relative to just other options around in his price range. So Cole Anthony has been really, really good for the Magic this year. The problem is, for whatever reason, the Magic don't really seem to love Cole Anthony. So when the team is healthy, like they play Fultz over him, they play Suggs over him. But when these guys are out and they have to play Cole Anthony, he generally performs really well and crushes. So considering that the Magic are shorthanded, I think Cole Anthony is somebody to get exposure to. Not like core play type guy, but overall, I like him.
For sure.
Is that the answer you're hoping for?
I mean, there's a lot of good plays on this slate. It's really, for me, like Cole Anthony versus Simons. How do you feel about that? And when asking that, when making it that
Simons.
question? Okay. Yeah, same. So it's just hard to get to, both of them with so many good guards on this slate, but there's a bunch of good plays.
All right, just scrolling through Discord to make sure we didn't miss anything, and also going to look in the super chats. We're all caught up there. All right, guys, so we're at lock now. If you haven't done it, do us a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stick around. Next 30 minutes, Matt and I are going to react to any kind of late-breaking news that comes our way, and there could be some of it. Chris Paul is questionable. Evan Mobley is questionable. Malcolm Brogdon is questionable, and the Cavs game starts in an hour. So the situation with Evan Mobley, I do think is going to get resolved within this next 30 minutes in all likelihood. First, do you have a best guess? Does Mobley play or does he sit?
I think he sits, missing shoot around. Like whenever a guy misses shoot around, I'm always going to lean on them sitting. Not that that's always the case, but that's kind of the pushing point for me, if you will, is just like he missed shoot around. So I expect that he doesn't play. I really have no idea though.
If he sits, let's talk about some of the other ramifications for it. If there is no Mobley, I know you've said you like Jared Allen more. Are there any other value plays you could see yourself prioritizing from the Cavs, though?
No, I think it's, like you mentioned, a boost for everyone involved because Mobley does eat up usage, but he's not great offensively. Like he does not have a high usage number because he doesn't really like having the ball in his hands too much. So I think it boosts everyone, but no one becomes a standout for me except for Allen, because of the rebounding opportunities, the, probably extra couple minutes he plays. Allen's the guy I love in that scenario. I like Allen regardless.
I only have 5% exposure to Allen right now, but I would do what I can to bump that up should Mobley end up sitting. And by the way, somebody in chat asking me, is Ace of Spades okay? I mean, I hope so. I know he hasn't left us a super chat in a couple of days, but I don't know. I only know people when they're in YouTube chat. If they're not here, I feel you. It sucks. We don't get, we usually start every show with our super chat from Ace of Spade. We look at DK tiers, we answer the question, and we haven't gotten a super chat from him in a few days. Maybe he's on vacation, which would be terrific, but I don't know. I don't know what Ace of Spade's been up to these days. Do you have a hotline to Ace of Spade, Matt?
I don't, but that just brings up like an interesting just conversation about like people via the internet, and like when they go away or if something happens to them, like you just will have no idea of knowing really.
I will say I find it a little coincidental. Eric's not here. Ace of Spade isn't here. I've never seen them in the same room before. Are they the same person? Is Eric kidnapped Ace of Spade? All possibilities. If they're, it wouldn't be the first time Eric kidnapped somebody. So we'll see. I hope he's okay. The worst case scenario would be that he's spending time with Eric. I can't imagine a worse fate for any human being.
Yeah, I mean, right there with you.
We've got some questions here, Mike. People want us to build some lineups in the Sims tool for the showdown slate. And I certainly think that that is something that we could go ahead and do right now. So if we go and look at tonight's game, which is the featured game on showdown tonight? Let's see, what's the featured showdown game? It is
Kings Suns.
Jazz Clippers. So select Jazz Clippers in the Sims tool, Mike, and share it on screen. We'll build some lineups there, and we'll see what ends up happening.
It's funny because we didn't talk about one player from that game the entire show.
I don't know if they're. Let's see. So that game. Do I have any exposure to any players in that game? No. Playing 20 lineups, I don't have any of those players in any lineups.
Yeah, it's just that's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun that that's the showdown slate.
Sacks Phoenix, right?
No,
Yeah.
Clippers, Jazz.
Oh, Clippers. I didn't hear what Mike said. I just said yes.
He said Jazz Phoenix.
Okay.
Or he said Kings. Sorry, now I'm all confused in my own head.
It just guessed a different one. It was the featured one tonight, Mike. It is the Clippers Jazz. That is the $15 fadeaway on DK. $120,000 prize pool, $30K to first. What is it on FanDuel? What is the contest there for FanDuel? Okay, so we have on FanDuel, that contest is FanDuel is not offered. Yeah, it's a $50,000 prize pool, 10K to first. FanDuel's kind of done away. I don't know if you noticed if you ever really played it much in the past, Matt. I know not something that I've played a ton is the single game NBA formats on FanDuel. I actually like their format better than DraftKings, but they've like killed their contests.
Yeah, I haven't played much single game on FanDuel recently, at least, so I wouldn't know, but it doesn't surprise me at all.
And we've got, here's what I like about the FanDuel is with the MVP, the star, and the pro spots, where you get 3 different multiplier spots, a 2x, a 1.5x, a 1.2x. I think it's an interesting way to reduce the amount of dupes you get on some of those single game slates. Like that's something I think the NFL showdown contest could really use, particularly on DraftKings, is if you added in a 1.2x multiplier spot or something like that, or 1.5x in addition to that 2x. I think it would just give you more potential lineup combinations to make them a little bit different. So just my 2 cents there. But Mike, can you throw up the showdown on the screen? If
I remember correctly, FanDuel, they don't do like the price multiplier, do they? Or
no. So like I think there's like different aspects of DraftKings and FanDuel.
You got to combine them.
I think you need more multiplier spots, but then you can't do. I don't think anyway. Like I think it would be difficult if somebody was 1.2x their salary. So I think it would only have to be only the MVP. Like the top spot is double fantasy points or something like that. But then the other players would, so you'd increase, I still think you keep the 1.5x for the captain spot and you increase their salary by 1.5. But then you add one other player who keeps the same salary, but still is 1.2x their fantasy points.
I dig it.
I think that's how we're going to do it. Let's do, so for this DraftKings, and then we'll look at FanDuel also for this afterwards.
Yeah, this is the DraftKings Clips and Jazz 25% to first. And I haven't ran the sim yet. All right.
Let's see it. By the way, if you guys play at Owner's Box, they move back their lock tonight by 30 minutes, and their main contest is only half full. So just mention that. If you guys want to chase some overlay, Owner's Box main tournament only half full for tonight. All right. See what ends up popping up here. So favorite the top 150, Mike. And now go to the exposures. And now filter by the captains. Yeah, filter, position, and then just put a C in for captain. All right, so it looks like there's 3. Yeah, you're good there. So there's 3 that we're getting double-digit exposure to. It's very hard to read on the screen, but I'm doing my best here. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden. Those are the only 3 we're getting double-digit exposure to. Most rostered captain from the Jazz side of the game that we're getting to Jordan Clarkson. So generally it's the pay up options, but kind of curious, Matt. And, you and I were kind of firing from the hip here. We didn't look too much at the late game, but in that Clippers Jazz game, if you had to pick somebody who is cheap to roster, who would it be that you're going after as maybe a cheap option to get different in the captain spot? I have somebody in mind, and I think you're going to answer him, by the way.
I gotta pull up the slate now. I was just kind of looking at the screen, but now I gotta pull it out since you're asking me a specific question. One cheap guy that I would roster at captain.
I know you're going to answer.
Like, how cheap are we talking?
Just anybody who isn't one of the stars.
Okay. I'm not sure it's the guy that you think I'm going to say, but I'm going to say Zubac.
I thought you were going to say Walker Kessler.
I think they're similar. Like, I will say Zubac, kind of like Allen with Mobley, if Tice is out. Just because I think that gets him to play a couple more minutes. And Tice is now questionable with an illness. So that's what really made me say Zubac.
I'm going to say Walker Kessler. And there was a show that you and I were doing, but it was probably actually last Friday, where you had brought up liking Walker Kessler as a contrarian tournament play. I can't believe his minutes haven't been ramped up more yet. It has to be happening sooner rather than later. And we've gotten to a point where, Walker Kessler, not popular in Showdown. And in that multiplier spot, like, there's immense upside for him relative to his price point. One of these games, it's just going to be Walker Kessler goes out and plays like the normal 30 minutes.
If I'd used my brain, I would have gotten that answer because I did talk about him last week, but using my brain is sometimes hard. So sorry about that.
Chris Paul, illness, will not play tonight. So let's go ahead and talk about the implications of Chris Paul being out. And while we're discussing this, Mike, keep this on screen because we'll go ahead and we'll look at the flex plays after. But Chris Paul being out, is this going to change anything for you from the Golden State Warriors? Any value plays we should be looking at?
Not really. I mean, it does make me like a guy like Draymond Green a little more. He's already playing a big point forward role, but he's close to 7K. So no, I mean, Moody's expensive. These guys have already been priced up, like for Draymond being out. So not really, no.
I think Wiggins is worth a tournament flyer now, $5,700 for Andrew Wiggins. And Wiggins is not priced up at all. He's also been, I don't know what the hell is going on with Wiggins this year, but he has completely disappeared. It reminds me of, do you remember when he was back with Minnesota, they signed him to the big contract extension based on a handshake deal that he promised to try harder to get better?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
he's kind of that guy again. He's like checked out. He's not really all that involved in what the Warriors are doing, but I still think this is a guy who's improved a ton since he's come to Golden State. And even if it hasn't been there this year, there's more opportunity for minutes for which the biggest thing that's hurt him with Chris Paul being there this year is we haven't seen the minutes upside for Andrew Wiggins. If he plays well, I assume he still has those 36-minute games in him. So Andrew Wiggins, I think he's somebody who's worth taking a tournament flyer or two on.
I think it was Bill Simmons proposed a trade last week of Wiggins and Kuminga to Toronto for Siakam, who says no.
The Raptors, why the hell would they ever say yes to that?
I mean, Siakam's been on the block. I don't know the financials, but that would be a reason that they say yes, is if they can't or do not want to keep Siakam and they get a young player like Kuminga back.
Yeah, so the other side of this too, though, is then you have to take on Andrew Wiggins and his situation.
Fair.
So Andrew Wiggins contract. So Andrew Wiggins is going to be paid 24, but so he's going to be paid $24 million this year, 26 next year. So he just signed a 4-year, $110 million extension. Right. Like I'm not, I don't want that contract.
I agree. I mean, there are plenty of those floating around the NBA, but I'm with you. Like, that is not an appealing contract at all. So the deal would probably have to become spicier from from Golden State, whether it's picks or whatever it is.
And I know a big part of this too is people have been trying to get Andrew Wiggins to the Raptors forever just because he's
right.
It's
right.
That's not, to me, that's like it's not an appealing aspect of the narrative where it's like, oh my God, like he grew up in Canada. There's one Canadian basketball team. We should get this one player to Canada. It's the dumbest thing ever.
People talk about Canada like it's a city in a state, like it's a whole country. I'm sure they really don't care if Wiggins plays there.
That is actually kind of funny too. Could you imagine if somebody was like, hey, if somebody in Russia is trying to arrange where, somebody's going to play basketball or whatever, and they'd be like, if basketball was primarily being played in Russia, and they're just like, oh, this guy probably wants to play for the Clippers because he's from New York.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Are we going to look it up? Is Andrew Wiggins like actually from Toronto now? All right, where is he from? Right, Andrew Wiggins is from Thornhill, Canada. Well, this is the problem. Nobody's heard of this place. They probably made fun of it on South Park. Where's Thornhill, Canada? Thornhill, Canada. Okay, Thornhill, Canada to Toronto. I mean, it's not that. It's an hour away, so it's not like crazy far, but still, it's not like he's from there. All right,
yeah, that's funny though. The comparison you made is hilarious because that was like exactly what I was saying.
But it's also because we're so ignorant as Americans, we don't know
exactly
shit about geography. Like, what do we learn about geography as kids? The states and their capitals. It's the most useless information, and then we just don't know anything from other countries or anything like that. And I'm guilty of the same thing. Like when I've traveled and gone abroad, my first thought is like, oh shit, there's a lot of foreigners here. Like if I go somewhere and people don't speak English, it annoys me. I am coming to their area and I'm like, yeah, where are the English speaking people at? And I view everybody there as foreigner. We're the foreigner, not them. But
and I'm with you. I'm the same way. And we're like the educated people. Think about how many non-educated people there are in America that are way worse than that.
We've got opposite XO in chat said, we learn our states and capitals when we were 7 and then we're set for life. Yeah, what other geography do you need to know? You learn the states and capitals. If you don't know the capital of Iowa is Des Moines, what are we doing with ourselves here? That's the education that we are equipped with as kids, though. Let's go back to Mike. So looking at the tools here, go to the player exposures and let's look at the flex options now. Let's go to the flex. Yeah, just filter by flex, and then I'll try to make out what I can on screen here. You have to go position on the left. No. I mean, either one's fine. But when you go to that filter, yeah, you have to do position instead of player. There you go. Now we're cooking. All right, so if we go and look here, the flex players we're getting the most of, James Harden. So Jordan Clarkson looks like the player we're getting the most of from Utah. That was also the same case in the captain spot. And then we have John Collins showing on some lines. Other than that, it is heavily geared towards the Clippers. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of our top 8 players, or some of our top. Yeah, it's so lineups geared much more towards the Clippers, which also makes sense, right? If you're going to pay up in showdown, which you're going to do more often than not, because the way the pricing structure is different, the min salary is lower, you're going to have to pay up for somebody, and the Clippers are the only guys to really pay up for there. So James Harden, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, Paul George, Zubats, Keontae George, Kawhi Leonard coming in there. You kind of surprised that we're getting to more of Paul George, James Harden over Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi also somebody I haven't really played a ton of him in DFS this year. There was a point where I thought he was going under-owned. He was a little bit underpriced, but I haven't really clicked that Kawhi Leonard button in a minute. What have you been doing with the Clippers this year in general for DFS lately? Because me, it's just not been playing them.
Same. Haven't really been playing them at all. There's been a couple slates here and there where I've played Harden and Kawhi. I haven't gotten to Paul George, I feel like, all year. I don't really understand why we're getting to him and Harden over Kawhi here. They all look just like the same to me. I think they're all really good plays on this slate based on what you just said. Like, you have money to spend up on studs here. It's only one game. Like, they're not great from a 13-game slate perspective because they're going to eat into each other, but you don't really care about that on a one-game slate. So, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Cask Monte in the chat asked me what the capital of Vermont is. I did not remember that one and looked it up. And this is, there's no way that Montpelier is the capital of Vermont. Would you have gotten that one?
I would not have. Now that you said it, makes sense. Like, yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't ring a bell.
But I'm a hippie.
We had, I thought, a really strong guess from Andrew Jemison in the chat was Vermont City. That's one that I also would have probably gave. Like, if you told me Vermont, I'm not going to remember Vermont at all, the capital of it. I wouldn't have gone Montpelier. I probably would have also just gone with Vermont City.
I don't think that that's an actual city. But if you ask me to name a city in it might be just like a random small city, but I've never heard of it. Trying to think about if I can name any city. I can't, and that's pathetic.
Have you ever been to Vermont before?
I have not. How about you?
My roommate, one of my roommates in college was from Vermont.
I heard the University of Vermont is very fun, but I don't really see, and this is coming from someone who's from Ohio, like, why are you going to Vermont?
Skiing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good beer.
Good beer. Mike, you're an alcoholic. You're traveling to Vermont just for beer. Going, hey guys, road trip. I heard they got good beer in Vermont.
I actually went to Vermont
so good.
For my 40th birthday just for beer. So I am an alcoholic, though.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Let me go
back.
Right,
Mobley's out.
Mobley is out. All right, so we've got no Evan Mobley for tonight. Here we go. Projections should be updating fairly soon. And I'm curious to see what's going to change. So you were already building your lineups under the assumption that Mobley wasn't going to play, correct?
I was.
Is he now Jared Allen best center play overall on the slate?
Yes, but it's not like, oh my God, you have to jam in Allen. Because there's comparable guys all over. Nurkic, Claxton, Reith is 4K. So, like, I don't think you have to play Allen, but to me, he's my favorite center on the slate, if that makes sense. How about you?
So I already have a bunch. We were talking about this before, but I already have a lot of my center spots locked in. So there's guys like I can't swap off Clint Capella at this point. Oh, let's see how he's doing early. Maybe am I going to look at the results so far and feel like I should have swapped off him? I mean, in 5 minutes, Capella's 2 points, a rebound, an assist, and a block. So I'm still feeling pretty good about the exposure I have to Clint Capella there. And then, Joel Embiid is 9 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, and a block. So I'm going to say that Joel Embiid's the best center on the slate now.
Well, he's going to smash. It's just a matter of whether he gets 60 or like 80. Because if he gets 60, 65, it's fine, especially because he's not high owned. But if he throws up like 80 again, then we got problems.
Can you believe that the other day Luka scores 65 fantasy points in the first half, and it was like an irrelevant score to the slate?
That was actually the night that I won the 200 and I played Luka and Embiid. I was like, I didn't even realize how low owned Luka was compared. He was only like 15% owned. I could not believe that. I was watching a lot of that. Luka had one of the better first halves I've ever had. And I didn't watch like on TV the second half. To me, it must have just been like they were up so much. He was letting the other guys do their thing. Like it had to have been that, right?
No, it was because they were up so much the game was a blowout, and then he only played a few minutes in the third quarter and was done for the night.
I thought he played like the majority of the third quarter, but I didn't watch it.
Still the majority of the third quarter though. So it's like he played like 7 minutes in the third quarter. He still finished with what was it, 78 fantasy points or something like that. So he still scored like a fantasy point and a half or more than that. He scored almost 2 fantasy points per minute in the third quarter. It was just in the first half, he was scoring like 4 fantasy points per minute. So he still had like a ridiculous pace, scoring 2 fantasy points per minute in the third quarter, and he was just done for the night.
And it seemed like he did nothing because he did so well in the first half. Yeah. You're right.
Oh, this is kind of interesting. Nate D in the chat wants to know, are you all in on Flacco the rest of the season?
I mean, what is that? As the starting quarterback for the Browns?
Would you want him to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year?
A lot of people around Cleveland do. Like, people think he played so well last week. Like, he was fine, but like, I mean, the answer to your question is still probably yes, because I like DTR a lot better from a talent perspective, But the Browns need a veteran quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over this late in the season with a really good defense. They're not winning a Super Bowl either way, but I think with Flacco, they can probably get to the playoffs. So yes, but I'm not excited about it. And I know a lot of people in Cleveland like are talking themselves up to be excited about it, which I think is asinine.
The quarterback play has been very shitty this year in general, to where when I saw, and I was just watching games on Red Zone, but from what I saw, Joe Flacco looked like he was making some throws. He looked better than most of the quarterbacks I've watched play this year.
And a lot of people around here do not like Deshaun Watson. So all week, it's been the best quarterback game Browns have had all year, Joe Flacco. Like, they do, like, there's a show on YouTube I watch. It's on every day. It's called the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. They, like, rank the 10 best players from every game the Browns are playing. So this week they're playing the Jaguars. So obviously Trevor Lawrence, ETN, etc. There was like a full-blown argument on why one guy left Flacco out the top 10. And I'm like, are you guys nuts? Like, we just signed him last week. Like, the Cleveland hype for guys is insane sometimes.
It's like that for all fan bases.
True.
And
you're right, though. The quarterback play has been awful. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, me living in the New York, New Jersey area, the Jets fans for a couple of weeks, they were like, all right, so the team is 4-8 now, but they're going to win the next 5 games. Then you get Aaron Rodgers back for the playoffs, easy Super Bowl. And it's just, this is what the talk radio is. It's just people calling, it's like an inevitability. It's like, all right, so the Jets are going to run the table. When do we bring Aaron Rodgers back? And, then they lose the game and the whole thing goes out the window because they lose one game. But that was like the entire for a week. If you're in the car driving anywhere, the talk radio is when do we bring Aaron Rodgers back to make sure he's ready for the Super Bowl run?
It's so funny. The only like coverage I listen to besides the Browns or Cleveland coverage is like New York. And mostly it's because I love Robert Saleh. So like I watch his press conferences. It's crazy that they're just like putting him out to dry. But yeah, when you listen to them, like, man, it does give you a little bit of perspective, like, for sure.
We've got some questions that have come to us in Discord now, and this one right here is from Boss Bro said favorite FanDuel GPP centers. So one of them is going to be Jared Allen now. He also did ask us this post-lock, but I mean, my other answers would have been guys like Capella, Embiid. I like Nurkic a lot. Nurkic is somebody to get to. Jared Allen. Of the players that are still yet to play, Jared Allen and Nurkic are the ones I like the most on FanDuel. And here we've got Tim Lee asking us, do we prefer Strus as an upgrade to JA? And do you like Matt's take for JA? Who does he? I feel like I'm blanking here. Who does he mean by JA?
Got to be Allen, right? Jared Allen.
Right, Jared Allen. Okay, yeah. I prefer Jared Allen to Max Strus.
Easy Allen for me.
And then we've got Mr. Sledge to you. He's making either an educated guess here, or he might just know the fact, saying Ace of Spade is locked in Eric's basement until he agrees to be exotic. Hey, could be the case. Maybe Eric's just got him locked in the basement. He's saying, tell me who the most exotic tiers plays are. And he's torturing him that way. That's probably the most likely scenario.
Would that even be torture for Eric?
Torture is just sitting next to him on the couch. Onsteinium wants to know, do we get to any Wemby tonight? I feel like he was being underrepresented on DK. I don't think I have Wemby exposure. Yeah, I don't have Wemby exposure.
Same.
Did you?
No.
Yeah, no Wemby exposure from me.
He's definitely the type of guy now, like, you can play him on any slate. You talked earlier at the beginning of the show about how there's so many different ways to get different on this slate. And, like, you can play 6 chalk guys and then play Wemby and your lineup's different.
Wemby is somebody who, if I'm going to be playing him as a contrarian option, I'd rather do it on FanDuel than DraftKings. Just he has the ability to so much easier break a FanDuel slate just with defensive stats. And I can't remember if I've asked you this before or something I asked Eric at one point. Peak Wemby, what do you think his blocks and steals per game averages?
I think we did talk about this, but I can't remember, so I'm going to answer it again. I'm going to say his peak is probably 6 to 7. And that's
combined?
Really high. Yeah, combined.
Okay, so I'm gonna go. I'm more or less same with you. I've got four blocks, 2 steals per game.
Yeah. So we see that pretty much eye to eye.
And you think about it, it's each game on FanDuel you're starting with him where it's all right. He's an average of 18 fantasy points per game. He gets just on defensive stats.
It's pretty crazy.
What are some of the recent ones for him? All right, Wemby. It sucks the Spurs are as bad as they are. Because the beginning of the year, it was so fun to watch Wemby games when the team was competitive. I still like watching him play, but it definitely loses some of the allure where it's like, hey, look, the Spurs are down by 25 points in the third quarter. Here's Wemby playing in meaningless basketball games.
Yeah, agreed. They're really bad.
Recent games for Wemby. This is ridiculous. Maybe I might have even undersold it. His last game, he had 1 steal and 1 block. The game before was 2 steals and 4 blocks, which was that fake average I gave for him. Before that, 6 steals, 4 blocks. He had a game against Memphis a couple of weeks ago with 8 blocks and a steal.
Jesus.
Over under 2.5 Defensive Player of the Year awards for Wemby. And this will close us out. Then we're done for the night.
I'm going to say under, but just because there's so many factors involved in that, like injury, all that. He easily could get it, but I'm going to just say under for the sake of the question.
0.5 Defensive Player of the Year is over.
Over.
I'm going to do that too. I'm going to go over. 1.5.
I'm still going to go over.
All right. I'm inclined to go over as well.
Because he's so young and so good defensively already. Like, once he fills out a little bit, like the NBA is a grown man's game. He's like 18 years old. So, I mean, yeah, I think even just saying it like that, you could easily make the case for over 2.5, to be honest.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us today. I hope you all have a great weekend. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Underdog for sponsoring this show. You sign up using that link, we have to get access to a free score. Over 0.5 total yards for Dak Prescott. So go check that out. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend. See you back here next week. Peace out.